And the sea rain.
8:30, calling the School Facilities Commission business meeting, September 25th, 2025, at 8:30 a.m. to order.
And the sea rain.
First item we have, 8:30, roll call.
Oh, sorry, that is my,
Business meeting. September 25th.
sorry, go ahead, sir.
First item we have is roll call.
That was scary. There was two of you.
Ready, Chairman? All right, roll call. Ready? Ready?
Well, we are. I was
Okay.
talking to the director.
All right.
Yeah, that was comment.
Okay, Commissioner Coughlin,
Present.
Commissioner Ferentz,
Present.
Commissioner Cashel.
Yeah.
Commissioner Thayer,
Here.
Commissioner Thorne,
Present.
Commissioner Van Mark. Here. Courtney Muir for Superintendent Dagenfelder. Chairman Carter.
Here,
Yep, quorum, sir.
thank you. Introductions to the commission, go around and introduce themselves.
I'm John Rexus. I'm Project Management Supervisor for School Facilities.
Shelby Carlson, School Facilities Division Administrator.
I'm Del Coleman, Director for State Construction Department.
Bruce Thorin, Commissioner representing the central area of the state.
Jack Carter, Chairman.
Travis Conklin, represent the Bighorn Basin districts. Tom Ferentz, representing the west side of the state there.
Scott there, Albany, Carbon, and Sweetwater counties.
Jackie Van Mark, Goshen County.
You guys want to introduce yourselves?
We're working on the camera to make sure you can see you all.
Oh, okay. Would, start over here with Dan.
Laura Anderson, I'm the Finance and Operations Administrator for the State Extension Department.
There you go.
And now our guests.
And Celebrity, Sweetwater County School District. Randy Wilson, Albany County School District 1.
Charlotte Reynolds, Taylor County School District.
Mitch Johnson, Commerce County School District.
Will Wenmeyer, Stasis Designs.
Andy Knapp, Laramie County School District 1.
Dave Barlow, Hamilton County School District.
Sean Mathis, Yale County School District.
Edmund Person, Fremont 25.
Jeremy Snyder, State Construction Office Project Manager.
Tabitha Wolf, Attorney General's Office.
Devin Kinney, Wyoming Attorney General's Office.
Thank you. I just have a couple remarks. We went on a tour of several schools here yesterday. I can honestly say they're beautiful schools and they're very well kept. Superintendent and bus driver and one other individual with us were great. Thank the district for the tour. Director, do you have any remarks?
Yeah, similar, Mr. Chairman. Certainly appreciated the district hosting us for the meeting. Great room, great facility. The tour of the buildings was impressive. A number of the buildings were older buildings, but wasn't a mark on a wall, a mark on a floor. I mean, really, really well kept and appreciated them taking a couple hours to tour it around. Additionally, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take a little bit of time and talk about the facility management group. We've got three items that we're trying to get some facility managers from around the state to help us with. One is the department is starting the review of the adequacy standards, design standards. A second is component projects. We want to go back to similar how we did that about 5 or 6 years ago, where we had the facility folks help in scoring and recommending to the commission various component projects from around the state, and then an evaluation of the facility condition assessment. So there's about 3 different components to that. One of those would be looking at the cost replacement values. We recognize that some of those are probably a little low. And we want to go back and review some of those. The second part of that is how do we, when we do major maintenance work component type of requests or work, how do we feed that back into the system so that it readjusts the scoring? And what should that look like? Like, again, a number of facility folks to help us with that. And then the final one is looking at the life cycle of the components. For example, the brick facade on the outside of our buildings, what the consultant was utilizing, this is national standard they were working off of, but was a 50-year life for your brick on the outside of a building here in Wyoming. I think probably to some degree because of our drier climate, things like that, we don't see that kind of deterioration. So there's some items there that we want to by the facility groups and get those things suggested. Give us a little better basis on how we operate here in Wyoming. So I've been working with Mr. Dan Rowley, trying to put that together. Dan sent out a request to the facility managers maybe about a month ago or so, right after I think our last meeting. And so we did get quite a few volunteers for that. So we're breaking that up into 3 teams. In addition to that, on the adequacy standards, we're looking to have a couple of legislators on that and then a couple of commissioners. So, Mr. Chairman, want to visit with commissioners, see if any of the commissioners would want to serve on that committee. We again looking for probably 2 commissioners. That one's going to take a little bit more time if we work through that, but we'll try and keep it to a minimum, that we can. But that's going to be a big lift, I think, getting that. We're required by state statute to review those adequacy standards every 4 years, and certainly the department has a number of ideas on some changes to that. One of those being, for example, maybe the CTE square footage per student. Looking at that, there were some things like the shot clock that came up, second shot clock, and some of those that we probably need to add into those type of things in the design standards. And so. With that, that's everything.
Okay, thank you. If anybody's interested, let me know on those. Next item we have is approval of the agenda. We do have to make one change. If you look at your agenda, the adjournment needs to go below the executive session necessary. So we'll have to make that change. With that change, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, so moved to approve the agenda.
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved. Going to our discussion items now. Update on select committee meeting, Director McCombie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had 3 or 4 commissioners that came to Casper for the select committee meeting here about a month ago. Overall, I thought the meeting went pretty well. It was pretty well received by the committee. We did have one question on the commission's budget, and that was dealing with the safety and security recommendation, the 10 million. We were looking at 2 million of that to go towards vestibules, and then 8 million to go towards be allocated, kind of like we do on major maintenance by ADM. The select committee had a few concerns. First, that we didn't have we didn't say exactly what we're going to be spending the 10 million on. We were going to leave it kind of to the districts, other than the vestibules and bollards part, the first 2 million. And so they had concerns as to how the rest of the legislature would view that. Would that just be a slush fund without anything definitely put in there? They also wanted to know, would that be items that would be tied back into the safety security system that the evaluation that was done about 10 years ago. If you're not familiar with that, Mr. Chairman, there is a booklet that the district have we operate off of, and there's a code for different items. So if it's door locks, it has a certain code. Security, lighting or something might have a different code. They wanted to know how that would tie in, what that would look like. And so after that meeting, the department went out and sent out an email to all of the superintendents, the business managers and the facility managers asking for the districts to come forward and tell us how many of them need vestibules on buildings. What was the need for bollards and maybe where those bollards would be. And then we asked them for two priorities. Their two highest priorities for safety and security, again, based on that previous study that was done and those connections. So again, our ask or the commission's ask was $10 million. Right now, what we got back originally by the deadline date was about the low worth of requests. Since then, we still are getting some information from the districts. I think 5 million just maybe yesterday or day before. So we're up at 35 million plus that are actually denoted by project. And we don't know for sure. I think it could even be higher than that because we've got a lot of vestibule requests, but not necessarily dollars tied to those. Well, Mr. Chairman, I guess I'd like to have a little bit of a conversation with the commission on your thoughts on maybe how to proceed. We've got the meeting next Tuesday with the governor, move forward the $10 million request for them. And then I think it's the last week of October, that Monday, we meet again in Casper with select committee. And again, we're going to give them the list and show them all those projects, but not sure how they'll want to address that. When we stay at the 10 million, is there a higher number that they may want to adjust that to? But certainly, I would like to see some kind of recognition from the commission, whether you support that higher dollar number or that recognize those projects that were put forward. Our thoughts, because of the number of vestibules we had, that probably what we'd ask to do with that 2 million for the vestibules is ask for design and move forward on design on projects and then come forward with a request next year for the construction after we have the design done. Because every one of these vestibules is going to be a little bit different in nature. I think there's certainly a number of the older schools that were designed a number of years ago that the central administration offices are more centrally located in the middle of the building. So a vestibule on the outside might have to have some different space to bring people in, and maybe a sitting area or something like we did in Jackson recently. And another one might be as simple as adding something on right as you come in the doors or the front end. So it could be total.
We lost him.
Yes, I believe we've lost him. I'm going to go ahead and send this is Amber at State Construction. I'm going to go ahead and message everybody there and tell them we've lost him online.
Thanks, Amber.
Not a problem.
Hey, Amber, this is Troy. You did leave your mic on.
I appreciate that, Troy. I don't think I said anything, did I?
You didn't.
It appears that at the district they are at, the internet had dropped out. So hopefully they'll be online here shortly. Thank you guys.
Yeah, it's a little more expensive.
Well, it's depending what happens with within the particular office of that building. Here's a big screen, big TV.
Well, thank you. I was just
screen.
going through it. Okay, that's all. Quoted it.
To the.
Yeah.
20.
Yeah, I can see the question.
So that's part of it, the Raptors, and what they're talking about, you walk into the building, you hand them your driver's license, and they put that in a machine, runs a quick background check. You may find your driver's license, and says yes or no, whether you get it on building or not. I mean, we're still watching. That's.
Still have- We're live here now, so just give us a minute to reconnect here, just let you all know.
And there's all kinds of integration with IT, all this stuff.
Bruce,
I think Joni's on there now too.
yeah, we have live mic.
Like, you think. Other systems.
Okay, well, so Mr. Chairman, that's a topic a little bit later that maybe we can have the commission weigh in on safety and security. The
There's
other
a lot
thing,
of pieces to that.
there is.
I'm just sitting here listening to that. You have the vestibules, the ballards, you have software, you have key, you have cameras. So you're probably looking at $50 to $75 million for the very budget. Right?
Well, you know, it was interesting. One of the requests we got was for a future request actually come up, if I recall, it was like $800,000, and they were looking, their system, their software is going back up in like 2035. So those things are just like what we deal with at home and in our offices with software. It's always being updated. It always needs to have new, and it doesn't go away. And so again, you know, it'll be an interesting conversation with the select committee as to what we could say that. So the other one that one of the other things that came up was a cost comparison for what it's costing to construct schools here in Wyoming versus other states. And so our staff and some consultants have been working to try and come up with those numbers. What we're kind of seeing preliminarily is a couple of states to the north and west of us are maybe a little bit cheaper. Some states to the lower west of us, south of us are a little bit higher. My concern is that when we toss around numbers by dollars per square foot, for example, we'll say Rock Spring High School, $580 square foot. But that includes the tracks, that includes the infrastructure for the road. Sometimes that may include getting the utilities to a site, you know, all of those sort of things. So how do you compare that to another state? How do you get apples to apples when we talk about square foot? So a square foot for them, the total package, or a square foot for them, the building. That include large parking lots and things like that come into the building. Is that all in that square foot? So that's one of the things we're trying to shake out right now. And again, select committee meeting about a month from now. we'll have some information to provide to the select committee. Another one was, there was a question on, right now on the block grant, they're funding students in the upper grades at 21-to-1 ratio for teachers. And for our, how we look at, how many students are in the room that we calculate, we use 25-to-1 in those, upper grade classrooms. And so, Senator Rothfuss said, well, why are you guys using 25? They're funded at 21 and the block grant, that kind of stuff. So we went back in history and looked, and it came about through studies back in about 2012, 11, 12, 13 timeframe. I think the commission adopted the 25-to-1 in 2012. And so what they looked at, so the two aren't connected. Really what is going on in the block grant and then what we're looking at on the building side. So what they did is they went out and surveyed a lot of other states, and we've got that in the report. And they looked at what other states were doing nationally. Well, not only the number of students in the classroom, but a lot of other functions in which they do, and compared that. And so at that point in time, based on what they were seeing in other states and those sort of things, then they adopted 25. So we'll be reporting that to the select committee. Another item was virtual school. So we provided in the annual report to the commission a number of graphs on a number of students and what that trend is looking like, both for students that are in brick and mortar, not virtual students, but homeschool, charter schools, things like that. We kind of had a comparison. And again, the committee wanted to know on the virtual school students, what does that look like? And do you put that back in overall, what's the trends look like? Those sort of things. So we're working on that. We need that information, however, from WDE to really make that work for us. And then we can, once we get that information, we can plug that back into the graphs and provide that to the select committee. And then another topic that came up was, and this came up at the previous meeting, so it's been at the last two meetings, is, what's it look like for inflation and tariffs? So what effect are tariffs maybe going to have, inflation going to have? I think my answer at the first meeting was, if I could really forecast that, I'd probably be at a different job, making a heck of a lot more money. But we do work with some groups that give us those forecasting. So I pulled out the latest report for the quarter, and it talks about tariffs, it talks about inflation, and it's pretty interesting. There's some things that are moving up and down. So copper and some of those they're thinking are going to be affected. They're already seeing some effect on from tariffs. Conduit piping is going way up in price, in double-digit inflation this quarter over last quarter. But then we had things like insulation that went down, I think, if I recall, it was like 22% over the last quarter. So things are moving around and back and forth. But again, it's a pretty lengthy report that I'm just going to give the committee. And if they have questions, it's easy to log on. You don't have to pay a fee. They just send you an awful lot of information once you give them their email address and that sort of stuff. So, but if they're curious as to kind of what's happening there are tools that we look at to try and look at forecast on inflation. So that's some things that from the last meeting that we noted that we needed to provide to the committee. We talked with LSL and gave them that list. They're going to come back and if there's anything that we missed from the meeting, they're going to give us that information or give us that request, and then we'll provide that at the next meeting also. So the next meeting is going to be the formal vote on the budget for the committee, looking at your request, and then anything the committee might want to add or subtract for the budget bill. And then also they'll be working on the bill that is going to increase the excess square footage in the major maintenance calculation from 115% to 135%. So I think those are going to be the two big takeaways at that meeting in Casper. Again, it's on a Monday, starts, I believe it'll be at like 8:30 in the morning. So we'll be going up to Casper on Sunday afternoon to be there for the meeting.
What's the date of that again?
That's October 27th.
27th?
22nd.
22nd.
Or the 7th. Okay.
Which one? 27?
Yeah. We'll get you to show up 2 days. And that's everything, Mr. Chairman.
How do you think the committee's gonna talk about the safety once you give them that report? Do you think they're gonna encourage you to put more money in the budget or?
I don't know.
That's probably a stupid question. It's true.
Yeah, I really don't know. We've got a pretty big budget request, but again, they asked us to demonstrate the need and that I think the district did a really good job of providing us that information. And again, it's tied back to the previous study that was done. And so, I really, I don't have an answer. I don't know where they'll end up with that. Certainly, I'd like to see it go a little bit higher, particularly on the best schools, portion myself. I think it'll be a bit of an eye opener, Mr. Chairman, when we see the cost on some of these.
New schools will have that built in plans.
That's correct.
The board won't, that won't happen. Okay, built,
Right.
Is that software in there? Specs of that, well. New schools come along. I'm sorry.
well, they will on a heating system. Well, they had a heating system working on software, I'm sure that'd be included in it.
Yeah.
So I bet it is.
Generally, on the new buildings, the district already has like a Raptor system or something in place. And for the most part, the new buildings that we're building are replacing old buildings. So like, if you look at Rock Springs High School, Campbell, I think that system and the district folks are here, they could probably speak to it better than me, but you're replacing one for another. I don't know if it ties into doors and things like that. Dave,
Well, we actually have two systems. One is Salto for door security, and our cameras tie into the Salto, and the Raptor system is Sept.
But in your new building, it'll be in the design.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, any questions for Dell? Okay, the next item on the agenda is design build, Administrator Carlson and John Rexy.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. We will just tag team this. John and I just kind of work together on it. We are looking at design build as potentially another project delivery method that might be really useful to us. And so we attended a 3-hour class about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I did an hour Q&A with the design build consultants earlier this week. Some of the advantages that we see movement to this is, we can move faster, quicker. It gets rid of some of those steps in procurement because we go through the qualifications based selection and select a contractor, and then they're kind of in charge of bringing in that design consultant. Some of the another advantage, you get that contractor involved really soon in the process, and there's large advantages to that. They pick up some of the responsibility. You've got a single point of responsibility. You got to look at risk allocation. Some of that risk goes to them. You got to balance that so we can help control costs. But having them involved earlier lets you leverage more innovation as they're going through that design. Helps us control costs because they have to give us that GMP right up front. So we do think there are some advantages there. So we're researching that. We have, if we look at getting the right type of project, we want to start small, kind of get our feet wet on a small one as we learn the process. But we're working pretty slow right now. We're on we want to be sure we do it right the first time. So, we're trying to get some training and some understanding and move kind of slow to get it in place. And when you want to talk a few more before we go to the next steps about other advantages.
This is something we were kind of considering after the last commission meeting. Specifically, we had one project, when we initially went out for design services, we didn't get anybody show up at our pre-proposal meeting. And so we've been trying to figure out how to get that work done and how to go about it. We know that there's contractors in the area that are interested in doing the work. And so we were thinking that might be something that we could do to expedite that whole process for that particular project, which happens to have some excess funding sitting on it. We know that we're going to reverse them back. We know legislators are interested in getting that money back in their pockets. So we started kicking it around a little bit, and what we found out was there was an awful lot about it that we just didn't know what we didn't know. It got a little bit complicated. There's about 8 different types of design build methods that are out there. So right now, kind of where we're at is we're taking a deep dive into the procurement rules and the procurement statutes to make sure that we're going to stay in compliance with that. But also we want to make sure that we've got a comprehensive package all the way through that includes the request for qualifications, the request for proposal, that it has all the backup exhibits to it so that we can determine what's appropriate in regards to general conditions, that sort of thing. And we want to make sure that we explore all the what ifs so that we've got things covered and so that we can lead the districts and the design and contracting communities through this process if they don't have a whole lot of experience with it. We're just finding out that it's gotten to be extremely complicated, but also we see a lot of advantages there that we think are going to be beneficial for the state if they can get everything to line up. So that's kind of where we're at.
Another one of our big next steps we'd really like to do is, we've talked to the design and that we want to bring in some Wyoming contractors that have done design build, but are very familiar with schools and talk with them.
Johnson County Healthcare, Healthcare Addition and all the remodel and that.
Mr. Chairman, that consultant that we visited with this week actually works with the military department here in Wyoming. And most of their work is actually design bid or design build. And in the conversations with him, there's a number, he pointed out that he has worked with a number of our larger building contractors here in the state that actually do our school buildings also. And they're very familiar with the design build process and those sort of things. So again, as Administrator Carlson mentioned, we'll be reaching out to them and visit with them and kind of just keep working through the process and keep yourselves and our districts kind of informed of where we're at. My thought is right now is we've got some larger component projects. They started off before the merger with, they weren't sure where they're going to go, whether they're going to be a reconstruction or an addition or whatever. As it turns out, a number of these are maybe larger component type projects, a number of items rather than a component, but really fall more under that component. So those ones I think would be a good project for us to start with and cut our teeth on before we go to maybe a larger total package. So.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Question that I have, totally can get on board with design build. Understand the validation of the costs and staying within those costs and all those things. My primary concern, and that boils down to who's doing the design build, is the input from the district. Going through the architectural process, there's typically a design charrette. There's people who are getting their input into the process. Students have a voice, teachers have a voice, all of those people have a voice. And help define what that's going to look like and feel like. So depending upon how your design build process looks, how soon that starts, how involved they are, what involvement the architect has, all of those types and kinds of things is my primary concern. I don't want to lose the district input. I don't want to lose the local influence on those facilities, so. Just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I'll jump in first and let John go with the district. I mean, if you look how we're structured now, the district will still be the owner of the contract. They'll be the one to procure it. One of the things that's been talked about heavily is the importance of charter front. And so I think, you know, and that's kind of where I'm saying we want to get it right.
Yep, absolutely.
So we're kind of slowed it down, but I think you set up that charter and within that contract, we make sure that all those steps still happen. The contractor has to have those stakeholder meetings, which would include us at the table all the time, the district at the table. So it'll still be there.
Sure. You know, I look at here and I see some representation from some of our larger districts. And I know that they're going to be at the table and they will be bringing the voice. And then I think about Tensley, for example, that building just got completed. I know personally that Annie does not have time to be as heavily involved as some of these folks are in the audience within the process of that building. It depends upon professional services of that architect to be able to bring things to the table. Not that doesn't always happen either with the architects, I get it, but I'm just throwing a little caution to the wind.
Mr. Chairman, I think you touched on 2 very important pieces that we've been exploring. Mainly, how much control does the owner maintain throughout this process? Has been a particular concern for us. And then part of, I think, the work in front of us is to try to determine what the parameters are for the use of this delivery method.
Yep.
So we have to take a look at that. As you all are aware, our statutes require that districts provide adequate professional supervision of their projects. So to me, that's a little bit ambiguous, and it puts the department in a difficult position to try to make a determination of what actually qualifies as adequate professional supervision on a project. So that's one of the things with this, in this conceptual phase of development, I would say that we really need to take a look at and say, what are those parameters for the use? And probably restrict that until we develop the program to a point where we're confident to use it on more larger projects. And at that point in time, we'll probably know, based on,
Performance,
performance and all the way things go on.
Yeah.
And so.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a quick question and a comment, Mark. John, you don't have to tell the district or whatever, but the project you didn't get a design on, what type of project was that?
It was probably the best way to describe it is a combination of multiple component level projects within a building. So not a full renovation of a building, but there were several components and systems within that building that were deficient. So it was a bus maintenance facility.
Okay.
They need some new mechanical work, they need some lifts, they need some of their electrical redone.
So it's more of a engineer driven project, or was?
That's correct.
I asked partly because I'm headed to the AIA conference right after this, and the architects, they always ask about, what's going on with the school facilities, and I'd like to be able to get after it, but they didn't go after a project that's kind of on them, and so I just was curious on that. But the other, just in my experience with design and build, I'm cautious about, it seems like the more complex, the more aesthetic driven the project, the harder it gets. Like if you're doing a warehouse, it's really easy to say, hey, I need to help this many square foot, and I don't care if it's a rectangle or a square or whatever, that's really easy. But when you get, in just some of my previous projects that have been design built, the more complex they are, then obviously the more difficult it is. And then also the control, when I was working for an architecture firm where we went after a project and it was out of state, but it was for a state project. It was not in Wyoming, but they required they didn't let the architect team with multiple builders. They said you can only team with one builder type of thing. And we go through the process and they're like, well, we really like this architect, but we really like that builder. And so the owner felt like their hands were tied on what was more important. Did they pick the architect and not the builder they like, or do they pick the builder they like, but not the art, so I think there's some questions about how that process would work out, so.
Mr. Chairman.
And I'm sure there's some hybrids to this, but right now we're doing a CMAR project where the design went out 30%. Then we went through the proposal process. Designers are still leading to be able to control the components, so those don't get modified in a way that doesn't work. But it went out of about 30%. So all of the utilities and all the stuff that you have to have ahead of time are figured out. And then we moved to the next phase and selected with the owner, the contractor that got the CMAR construction manager at risk contract. For anyone who might know, not know. And then moved ahead with making adjustments to the design from there under that guaranteed maximum price, which sounds similar to process. And I guess from my perspective, a lot of the stuff where you see design build, everyone's definition is, as you alluded to there, John, of professional involvement gets a little dicey. Years ago, and it's been some time ago, I was involved in a project with a small community where they had a irrigation well that was installed that they required a design on. Well, the irrigation company designed the well, and they didn't know that the well was going to go with the river flows, the elevations of the river, so they just went down to where they found 6 or 8 feet of water, put a pump in, and then they came back and wanted a $20,000 or $40,000 change order to fix it because it didn't work because there was no water and the river went down. So those kind of things where I'm just a little leery of throwing it out and letting the contractor run off and everyone else has to chase them down the road saying, hey, we need to test that before your building sinks 3 feet.
Mr. Chairman, one of my concerns is where, if you're doing a total building replacement, would be where does the educational program fit into that package? How does the district look at how they're gonna program and what are they gonna offer for courses, how many, whatever. Again, if you're gonna have this fixed price on the front end, whatever the front end means, how do you take that into account as to how they're actually gonna utilize the school? So I think that's a lot of what we have to go through. Now, I will say that this is not the first one to be done for a total replacement of the school, if that's what we were to do. So Pinedale was a design build project. They're elementary up there and they're very happy with it. But that was many, many years ago, long before I came to the department in 2015. So but it has been utilized in the past and it worked. I think it's just a matter of going out and seeing, again, I think sticking our toe in the water and starting small and figuring it out.
Well,
Again,
like starting up the transportation facility or something. But
yes.
business complexes to see how it works in well.
The gentleman that was this week that sat down and worked with this, again, he does, I think he's out of Arizona, but he does a lot of work in Wyoming. He's been doing this for 35 years. And that's been his job, his business for the firm. So he's very familiar with everything from highways to whatever and how this all works. And so again, if we move out to do that, my thought was we're going to hire a consultant on the front end to help us through this whole process, us and the district and whomever all is involved in it, to sit down and I'll make sure we get it right on that front end. So.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, if I could just add to that too, I think because of the similarities between all of our alternative delivery methods, I think probably this process is going to help improve our construction manager risk delivery method as well, because we're going to see things that we can do and tweak to make that more functional and better. And then, as Director McComey alluded to, in our discussions with some of these bordering states in regards to their construction costs, we're also asking questions about the delivery methods that they're using. And what we're finding out is that
more often than not, it's an alternative delivery method, and frankly, the higher percentage of projects have been through the construction manager, general contractor alternative delivery method, or what a lot of folks in the industry like to say, the CMGC. So I think that that's something we're taking a look at as well. I don't want to get us spread too thin. We're going to tackle one thing at a time, but we've got these thoughts on how we can improve things and make this a better process for the state and for the districts as well.
Anything more? No. Anybody else? Thanks for everybody. Next item we have on our agenda is transportation facility design standards and guidelines prototype. Administrator Carlson, John Rexis.
Mr. Chairman, we had some conversation at the last commission meeting about transportation facilities. I'd like to engage this commission and the folks in the audience, the districts as well, that participate in an ongoing conversation about something that I think will provide a lot of benefits to the state and to the districts. And that is going to a prototypical plan for transportation buildings and facilities. As you are aware, we're currently working on a couple of transportation facilities, one over in Teton and one up in Campbell. But we're recognizing that there's a pretty high need based on our non-educational needs list. And we're seeing a lot of benefits to maybe going in the direction of having prototypes for those types of facilities. And so our proposal would be that we get together with some district representation, as well as potentially members from the commission and maybe even legislators, and start taking a look at that to figure out exactly what that looks like. Currently in our maintenance facility guidelines, it's split into 3 different sections. So we've got a small, a medium, and a large facility based on the number of buses that are within the district. I think all of those, well, not I think, those design guidelines were passed in 2012. And so we're noticing that there's a lot of things that have changed since 2012. Some things that and frankly, there are some things within those design guidelines that aren't quite clear. They cause a lot of confusion that I think need to be cleared up as well. And so if we were to move in this direction, we could create that committee to explore this and take a look at a lot of different things. Some of the advantages that we would see coming out of this is if we had a prototypical design, we understand that there's still going to be a need for some design because you're going to have to set those prototypes on the sites. You're still going to have some construction administration, but it's going to be a much faster delivery. All of your districts are going to know exactly what they're in line for. So there's not a lot of back and forth and a lot of delays talking about what's adequate or what's appropriate for that particular building. Probably won't have to go through the full value engineering process because we can value engineer the prototypes. There will be less back and forth between the department and the districts because the districts will know exactly what they're in line for. And all of those expectations will be managed on the end. We'll probably experience a lower cost in design. We'll have more accurate budgeting because as we progress through this and we start building these buildings, we'll be able to see exactly what the inflation is and where the costs will go on that. And we can make those adjustments in advance from budgeting, looking into the future. So we don't have an issue where we've got to figure out how do we make this project work and how do we go forward if we have inadequate funds. Simply because most of the time we're trying to budget for these projects 2 or 3 years in advance. And we really don't have an idea what those buildings are ultimately going to look like
what kind of things districts are gonna wanna have included in them or what their needs are. I think we see a big opportunity to clear a lot of that up. I think we'll see uniform systems within those facilities. So that might increase the state's buying power a little bit. It might also help us keep some attic stock so that we can react a little bit quicker. if somebody has something to go down on. We potentially, if we have more than one building and the design is the same and the prototype's already set, we could potentially bid multiple buildings at one shot in order to gain some economy and save the state and gain more value for the districts in that regard as well. Or we could have an ongoing design build contract so that when we get a project approved, we already have a design builder that's familiar with our prototypes and we can move forward with that. It just really speed up the process. You'll see increased equity across all the buildings because everybody will be getting essentially the same package. And we can continually improve and update the requirements for that whole industry for a while. So with that, unless Administrator Carlson or Director McCombie has some additional comments, I'll open it up for discussion, questions. Both.
I think I just, we would like to really think there's benefit there. We want to hear feedback from the commission. It's something we'd like to move forward with fairly quick because we do see a need coming for transportation facilities. We've been working with the district up north that doesn't even have a facility. They work with a local shop all the time until the local shops on local need buses and increase their insurance to the point the local shop couldn't do it anymore. They tried a different local shop and not get the quality of work they needed. So they've gone into their maintenance facility and built themselves a bay. The bus goes from one end to the other and it goes under the door by 2 inches. And they do everything on a creeper. So we've got situations out there like that where we have needs. We're trying to figure out how maybe we can start to address this quicker and keep some of those things moving because we have needs.
What the inflation rate is right now on everything? That holding steady or going up, or even like maybe 6%?
Yeah, I think.
I mean, this is.
Yeah, I'm thinking the 6% is probably good right at this point in time. Again, if you go back and look at that report that we're going to give the select committee and I can make that available if you don't have it, look at, but it's really fluctuating. So if you don't have a building that doesn't have a lot of insulation, but you've got a lot of pipe, it's going to be different. And so it's changing just based on the type of building. I think there is still, because a lot of stuff was coming out of China for HVAC and some of that. So you have these delays in getting stuff still, particularly on the electrical side. And so when you're trying to, if you can't get the components, even if the price is right, it drives up the overall cost because the contractor has to be on the job long. And so again, I think one of the things that John was referring to is economy of scale, is we do see a need out there on transportation facilities across the state. If we have a prototype design and we have a certain manufacturer of HVA systems or whatever, when that comes down and we know we've got a number of these buildings and we have something available to hit some of those larger items that come in. So I don't know, again, I'd be in a different role if I could forecast what inflation's going to be. We talked about, the cost compared to other states. And interestingly enough, I got an email on my desk from Utah. They got the same question. They said, what are you guys doing to contain your costs in Wyoming? We've tried to really watch what our costs and stuff, but it's fluctuating enough that our legislative bodies are questioning what are we doing? How are we doing it? They're questioning our costs for stuff that we're sending to them. So what are you guys doing in Wyoming? And I went to the National Facility Administrators meeting in Salt Lake this last summer. That was the question everybody had. It kind of depended on region of the state, what type of buildings you had, because it wasn't just for schools. This was all buildings on both the private and the government sector side, and everybody's asking the same questions. Certainly not in the double digit range that we saw during the COVID period. But I don't think it's stabilized right now. And I think there's an awful lot of questions still coming as the economy kind of picks up or doesn't pick up. What's going on again with tariffs in different countries, because if you change, and I know that the administration is trying to change, have more of that stuff produced in America, you got to build factories and hire people to do all that stuff. And that's going to take a few years to get that done. I don't know. I think we're in rocky times, quite frankly. One of the things that we do have, you may recall, the last session, we asked that we had about, I think it's about $13.7 million in inflationary funds that was scheduled to revert back. And we asked that we'd be able to keep that and use that on projects moving forward. And so that money is there to help as that happens. The other hat that I wear on the construction management side, the state building side, they've got an inflationary fund there that carried over from the COVID days. So the same questions that you're asking, the same questions the legislature's asking, isn't just on the school side, it's on the state side there with students. So
Which we have money to make all projects whole, most of the projects whole.
Well, I don't know. It depends. We've got two really large high schools. We've got two big elementary schools out there. You got 13.7. It doesn't take a large percentage to eat into those pretty quick. You got $130 million school.
Yeah. 6%. That's the eat it back.
Yes, just a quick kind of pondering, I guess, on the prototype stuff. Recognizing that many districts probably have different equipment preferences, let's say, for their mechanical or electrical systems. And maybe are enduring somewhat different environmental conditions as far as you get hailed out every time you go to Cheyenne. Cody, they blow the roof off your building, but you don't have to worry too much about hail. Is that something you guys have been contemplating, or is that something that you're thinking that you work with the facilities you'd be working through on that concept?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Conklin, I think that was something that we would work through with district representation. And maybe that's easily solved by just providing for a couple of different options within that design. It's, again, here we are in the conceptual phase of developing this. And so I think that there are some stuff that we still have to work through that, as I'm kind of seeing this, is whether we determine we have 4 different sizes of facilities or 3 or 5, I'm not sure. But I kind of see it as a kit of parts. So it's essentially one design and not 3 separate designs, but a design that says, if you fall within this range, this is how many bays you get. And then we provide this much parking, we provide this much finished space for meetings and administrative areas and so on and so forth. But something that's a very similar look across the board for all different sizes of facilities, where maybe if you've got this many buses, we're adding on these extra rooms and these extra bays and the extra parking, but so that all the facilities are very similar in nature. But we could probably accommodate, some minor changes as options within that, and then and allow for some customization within that. So.
From, again, my background from the architecture side, I feel the transportation building is probably the best one that could be a prototype as far as, like you mentioned, John, you could have a bay. This is the end bay of the building, and this is what the middle bay looks like, and this is what a wash bay, and then the district can, like you said, almost like a kit of parts or a puzzle where you just, okay, we want the admin side on the right or the left. It's pretty easy to to mirror those. So I think from a prototype, but to me, this is probably the best one to work with, and obviously with the input from the districts and stuff, but I think this would be a great opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ferris, I think that's an excellent observation, and I think one of the biggest advantages of going in this direction is that it drastically expedites the whole start to completion of the project. And one of the things that I think we struggle with a lot, and this is my personal opinion, this is not on the department, is the process to put that funding in place and get a project off the ground is so long that by the time that it actually occurs, everybody's in a hurry. And we forget to have the important discussions. We forget to talk about things and manage the expectations and make sure that everybody's on the same page going forward. And that inevitably causes a lot of hiccups that also slows up our projects.
And money.
So I think if there's a way that we can make things turn around faster, it's just going to be beneficial for everybody.
Bruce.
I can get behind this. Couple of things I guess I'll throw out to you as well is that, you know, before we built our K-12 facility, I think we toured 35, 37 buildings around the state. Stole every good idea we can steal. But we've got the opportunity. I love this from the perspective of the thought process going into the prototype. But having the right people on the bus, getting these maintenance people in from around the state, small, medium, large school districts, looking at their processes, looking at being able to grow the square footage on a parts room based upon number of buses, those types of things that would fit into this equation. I know there's frustration out there as far as start to finish and the time that it takes to get things done. So I would agree, you know, what Tom said is that this is a great place to look at this from the perspective of here's the basic prototype. And you know, as long as districts have the ability to enhance those projects, to do you know, alternate bids type of thing. Because the bus barn or the transportation maintenance facility in Jackson probably was not gonna look the same as the transportation facility in Shoshone. And it's, you know, it's based upon what's near and what's close and the aesthetics and all those types of things, so.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, so past life with White Oak, we tried to do this similar situation with our resident engineers buildings and our mechanic shops and our small maintenance buildings. We went out and really put together a shop that would have a small maintenance shop that might be 4 or 5 plows, would have a mechanic's bay, and it wouldn't have a full-time mechanic, and it would have an office for the patrolman. And then we had another design that had a full-time mechanic in there. And then if you had a resident engineer's office that had more vehicles, you had a bigger space. And so we started off with these design prototype type buildings. And I think it worked really well for the department because what we did by staying with a similar design, we found out what was good and bad and ugly on the first one, made a couple of tweaks, nothing really major, but made a couple of tweaks for the next one, and then figured out, okay, that was really efficient. And then what we're here, and we over 4 or 5 iterations of buildings, there's very little being changed in the design. So it's, you know, the plans are there, they're ready to go for these buildings. So again, when you talk about inflation, if you can save 6 months or a year on a multi-million-dollar building, you're talking some real dollars just right there. The other thing, when I was working as a consultant, so I worked in a number of states and was out working reviewing all the maintenance stations and mechanic shops and for the DOT in another state.
Thank you.
And it was an eye opener to what they had done there. They kind of owned that prototype system. But how they had incorporated their storage system, their racking system, the parts, storage, how they had it set up for the lockers for the mechanics themselves and things like that. Some of the efficient designs they had in there was really, really great. And in visiting with them, they'd done the same thing. They kind of started off with the prototype. Of course, they had their mechanics and different people that were involved in those original designs. And then they tweaked them over time and very, very efficient, and it reduced the cost to where I think they were getting more of the building for less cost because they had it figured out. I mean, you don't have to spend an extra $400,000 or $500,000 on, say, design. And you can put that back into the building because it's the same cost, to make it more functional. You know, that's a better thing. So I think, again, there's advantages to looking at this and how we move forward. And again, my thoughts are is not only the facility managers, but you gotta have the people that are using the building there within the room, to help work through that process.
Well, I see, a benefit would be the bigger districts normally have more qualified because they, a lot bigger, and so that would trickle down to some of the smaller ones and tell them get a better bus barn for transportation stores. And, I'm old, so, but I think that would really be a benefit to those other ones.
Mr. Chairman, we'll
Yes.
just make it unanimous here. I really appreciate the department bringing this forward. Really encourage the districts to be collaborative in the process, because the efficiencies that hopefully we'll realize in time and money would be a great benefit to all of us, as the dollars are going to be more in demand across the state.
The left outs,
Yeah.
things you forget, the happening for it, and all that.
Mr. Chairman, one more.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm with everyone here, and I think, Campbell and Teton are working on these things. I think those are perfect opportunities to actually, because they're obviously Teton County, it's not pretty, it's probably not happening. No contention intended, just what it is. And Campbell's a little bit more industrial, but you guys like to make sure you have that life cycle costs element considered. And so I really think it's the opportunity to use these school districts that have these vast differences, but also the capacity to really provide the kind of input that's valuable. So I think this is perfect timing. So, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so we'll be visiting both with the governor's office on this as well as select committee. Again, and as Administrator Carlson mentioned, we'd like to get started on this as quickly as possible for the design consultant.
Well, you have the larger districts already building, so
Yeah.
that's really a benefit.
Yeah. So go out and start this process and again, I think if John mentioned, really sit down on the guidelines and work through those too, make sure those guidelines are where they need to be. So.
Sorry. One last point that I forgot to mention along the way. Our consultant currently is working on our educational building design guidelines, and shortly thereafter, they're gonna probably be reviewing the outdoor athletic facility design guidelines. They're also working on adequacy standards. So if we decide that we need to revise these transportation facility guidelines, most likely, we're not even gonna get started on that for the next 8 or 9 months. And then we're probably looking at least 6 months to develop those guidelines. One of the benefits of going in this direction is the new prototype can be the standard and the guideline for the buildings going forward. So we won't need to have that expense. And once again, I mentioned this earlier, there won't be any value engineering during the course of design because design will already be done. So in a lot of different ways, it expedites the process and gets a building to districts. And I think all the money in those types of efforts would be better placed to the quality of the buildings and the components there.
Any other? Okay, we'll do, our next item is school safety and security request report. Director McCombie will have that report and then we'll take a 10-minute break.
Mr. Chairman, in my opening director's remarks, I talked pretty heavily about what, what we found from the select committee and then what the districts provided us overall. And so really what I was looking for in this section was really some feedback from the commission as to, your thoughts. I wanted to kind of give you the high points of that early on, so it hit you cold turkey and you could kind of think about it in the last few minutes while we were talking about other stuff. But what would be your thoughts on, I guess, how we present that to select committee? Do you feel it would be, since we have this kind of direct costing, to stick with the 10 million or because that's what moved forward, so your budget's there, but maybe a more pressure to say maybe we need a higher dollar amount, or
Absolutely.
how do we want to address that? Do we want to take on, because we've got it broke out, I think Administrator Carlson has a list of here's the dollars for their first alternative or their primary ask, and then their secondary, maybe we go after, say, we came up with 17, 18 million, whatever that is, from the districts for the first ask, and that's a high priority for all of our districts. That's what we want to try and tackle, rather than the 10 million. Again, get some feedback from the committee, but I was surprised at the number of vestibules that we still need on our buildings, and move that towards a design function and really get started on that as soon as we can. Those sort of things.
Well, my opinion on it is today's world, the school shootings, it's in everybody's eyes. I think we'll stick with 10 million and then give them the true story, say here's what we really should do, which might be what, $30 to $60 million. Bring them all up to the property. Let them want that pocket. I think they need to know the whole story. I think my personal opinion, stick with the 10 million, but tell them this is really what it is, true story. Give them the true story. In today's world, I've been looking at it, it's crazy.
Well, I was a little bit surprised on the ask for like the security system, the Raptor systems, the software on a couple of the big districts. And I think it'll be a surprise to select how much the districts have put into those large dollar systems that are needing that upgrade. And I would certainly like to, I mean, they really need those systems. You can't let your software go down and then not be able to, you lose the system because it's not being updated or whatever. So I think again, if that's the high priority for the district, we've got the numbers, we can provide them the numbers, and if we get into joint appropriations, which we will, and they get into that detailed conversation, we can lay it out by district, by their primary ask and their second priority and those sort of things. So, I mean, we've got the detail from the districts. They did a really good job providing us that information. And so again, they're the ones with the pocketbook, but at the same time, I think there's certainly a need.
I think they need to know what needs to be done. And then they make a decision what money will be spent. I don't know if anybody agrees or disagrees. Maybe the next budget we ask.
I would agree that we make the ask. My only reservation with the whole thing is I understand the need for design with the entry vestibules, but looking down through here in your exhibit B and exhibit C, there's quite a few things in there that can be done without any design protocol associated with them, so that if it were to go through and happen for the total ask, then make that readily available to districts so they can move on things quickly.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I think the legislature needs to get this placeholder out there and it needs to be of the record because of the world we live in now, that the district's done a great job identifying their wants and their needs. And they can take it back to their elected officials so they can make those determinations of how they want to allocate those dollars.
We know we should let them know. Share the knowledge.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I might just add that we we kind of gave a cutoff date for us to be able to present you information. We have gone back out to the districts that had not had the opportunity to respond yet. We've had 3 more districts respond since then. We've given them until 2 weeks, I think, from now to try to get us that information. So we will update this.
And we'll have it by the 27th.
And we'll get it to you and then we'll have a more robust list to get to the select committee. I wasn't able, we had another one come in yesterday. I wasn't able to get online yesterday for some reason to look at their data. But I know in the first 2 districts, it added another 5.8 million between 1 and 2. And I know we had another district yesterday. So we will certainly give you that final data.
I will look at it. We know we can share it with.
Getting back to Gresham, thing.
Chair, I guess I had one real quick question that agree about taking it to the select committee and stuff, but I did notice there's a few schools that are listed under the vestibules that are newer that have been built since we've had the secure vestibules as a design standard. So I was just a little curious if they're just needing some minor tweaks and improvements to those, or like, why do we have a new school that's listed in needing secure vestibule? It's just, I'm just kind of curious on that. I think there may be some double checking on that list or confirming what they mean by, oh, we need a secure vestibule, but if they said it's a new enough building, a couple that I saw that it should have one. So what do they mean by needing that? You know,
And that's certainly something, Mr. Chairman, we'll look at, through the design standards and when we reach back out to the districts to start that process. But I can tell you, for example, in Douglas, when we went, this is an older school, but they have a vestibule on the front. But the students actually come in the back when they unload the buses and stuff, and the back of the building doesn't have a vestibule. And so they have a vestibule for other folks coming in, general public and stuff from the front end. And, some students, but they do a lot of loading and the parking lot for the students is on the back side. So it had a vestibule, but they really need 2.
Okay. We'll start back up at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
The item we have is approval of the previous business. I'd entertain a motion.
Chairman, I'd make
Have one.
we approve the minutes from the
Oops.
Sorry. Oh,
Have Randy fix it.
Sorry.
Let's try that again. Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we approve the state construction's department's recommendation for approving the minutes from July 23rd, 24th, 2025 meeting.
I'd entertain a second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there any additions, corrections? Any additions or corrections? Any additions or corrections? Since there are none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign. Seeing none, the motion is approved. Next item we have is previous funding transfers, transactions and finance report. Administrator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, you will notice for the commission, you have a separate handout that has been provided to the directed online. That's the one. We had an addition that we wanted to make to this. We got our major maintenance report. You know how the districts have until July 31st to get their expenditures and everything. And then usually we're lagging behind because we balance that. The districts and our staff did an awesome job this year. It was completed at the end of August, which is the earliest I've ever seen it done. Kudos to the districts, but also I'd like to call out one of our staff members. Laura still takes care of this report. She works tirelessly to we're educating as new members come on to the district. She educates and trains throughout the year. She sends out reminders. She works with them. She'll even reconcile your bank statements if you send them to her. She is that diligent about helping the districts. She did a phenomenal job working with them and getting this done. I'm really, really proud of her. So I wanted to put that in there. And the reason why we want to put this in here is this is part of the annual report. We need to change the recommendation that we usually work with to include the state construction department recommends the commission approve the financial reports, and the final 2025 major maintenance report is presented in advance of that. So if you have any questions on that handout, as I said, it's in the packet online. It's been updated for those of you that are watching online to include that. And that's why we did that, so that we can get your approval on this and get it over to the select committee. So I will go ahead and go through our usual financial.
And I think you emailed that out earlier, I remember.
Yes, sir. So just wanted to make sure that no one had any questions on that, and it's a little deviation from what we usually do, so I want to make sure everybody understood.
Are there any questions?
Okay.
Seeing none.
Great, I will continue then with our usual financials. We'll start with the funding transfers and balances for the anticipated backlog. You'll see we have 1718 sitting at the same just under 1.2 million. The 21-22, of course, that's been entirely expended and is gone now, so we don't have that one anymore. 23-24 sits at a balance of just over 1.7 million. 25-26 is sitting at about 22.8 million. The land opportunity fund is sitting at 605,32. The emergency fund is sitting at just over $3.5 million, and the planning fund is also about $3.5 million. On the inflationary fund, we are sitting with an uncommitted balance of 13,396,014. Are there any questions on those? Seeing none, I'll move along, Mr. Chairman. Next, we go through our usual financials. We're on the first page, which is page 32 of your packet. Thirty-two of your packet is the overall executive summary report, including the operations, major maintenance, and the capital construction. Net appropriations to date are a little over $4.8 billion. Moving along, we section that out, and the next section is the operations appropriation summary. And draw your attention to the column D, which is the expenditures, sitting at about 242,000 for that month, and that's about average for what we've been running. So that's right within the normal standards. Moving along to the next page is the major maintenance appropriation summary report. This shows the district expenditures. If you go to column E, that's the 88 million. That's the 16th, the 680s were completed then on August 29th, so that should be reflected in there. Moving along then to the capital construction appropriation summary, this is where we monitor by biennium, the capital constructions that are out there, and we're always looking at column F, trying to make sure that balance is going down. And we have a delta this month of about just under $7 million that went out, so that's good. Next, we move on to page 36. This is your funding transactions report. Column B is what we generally look at there, where we're moving. You see the budgeted is a red number and the awarded is positive. We're just moving money from the budgeted. We've actually got a contract signed, so it moves there. The details of that are on pages 40 to 43. Generally, the biggest one that we did there, the biggest of that amount is about 38.5% of that. We did 1.2 million for Albany One, the demo at Old Slate was the majority of that. So pages 37 through 39 of your report are just the details of all the unanticipated accounts, if you care to look at any of those details. And then moving along to page 40 and 43 are the transfers, the details of those transfers, so you can look at it for yourself and see what all those details are. And then pages 44 through the end of the tab, as always, are the appropriations by district and facility. And that will conclude your financials if there are no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions? I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, so moved to approve the financials as presented.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
We need to amend that motion to include the final report.
Yes, please.
So amended.
Agreed.
Thank you. You agree to? Thank you. Any other questions, any additions or corrections? Since you're ready to vote on the motion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. So moved. Next item. Tab 4. I skipped one here. That's tab 3. That was on purpose. Okay. Joby.
Mr. Chairman, this is the request for adoption of the most cost-effective remedy for Fremont County District Number 25, Rendezvous Elementary School. And if we go back in history, in 2019, Fremont 25 completed a state-funded Mercer study for utilization. They had over 300,000 excess square feet at that point in time. They just were not able to keep up with their facilities and their delinquency cost, which is too high. So the state funded that study, and the outcome of that, laid out quite a plan for them to work on reducing that square footage. The district has been steadily working on that plan since that point in time. They have reduced from 302,000 excess square feet. They're sitting right at about 140,000 excess square feet. So they've just been chipping away. There's been a lot of work that has gone in by the district to make that happen. And they had to move a lot of programs and do those types of things to be able to demolish the toxins. One of the recommendations that came out of that study was to reconfigure the number of elementary schools in the district from 5 down to 3. You will remember a year ago, the commission approved the disposition of Ash Grove. It subsequently sold over last summer. So they have now disposed of Ash Grove, so they're set with 4 elementary schools. So this study is focused on going now from the 4 elementary schools down to the 3 that actually came out of that initial study. A little over a year ago, the board made the determination that Rendezvous Elementary School would not be well suited for the younger kids, especially the K-2. That was originally built as a junior high school. That facility is 66 years old. The district has done a good job of taking care of it. It's still in good condition. but not well suited for education of those younger students. And so in June of 24, the commission approved us to go ahead and perform a Mercer study to look at the adequacy of that school and to look at the elementary schools kind of across the district. At the same time, their Frontier Academy was over capacity. They did hit as top capacity need in the state. So when we started this, also part of that look was to maybe move the Frontier Academy, which had gone into their old special ed building, to potentially Jackson Elementary School at that time. So we put that in there with the capacity need, but really all of these schools kind of come together and how do you best resolve some of the action items that the district was needing to do. We, Superintendent Ibal and I made the decision in June to actually kind of set Frontier aside for just a little bit and go ahead and finish Rendezvous. The reason for that was it looked like the federal government was not going to fund the Job Corps in Riverton. And the district had already been in communications with the community college that might be a good place to move the alternative school as well as some of the college activities. So we made the decision at that time as they were trying to see what was going to happen to just set that aside for a moment. Since then, the federal government has kind of at least 1 more year. So we will be moving forward with that. But as we started this, we were looking at both activities in the Mercer study. Again, we just remember that the Mercer remedy is the one that the commission deems to optimize the benefits. Is the first thing we look at is to optimize the educational and the benefits to the district relative to the costs. The state construction department entered into agreement with Stasis Design to perform the study. They were hired to guide and facilitate the process, determine what those potential remedies were, evaluate those, and then come up with the most cost-effective remedy and provide us a final report, which you have received. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Will Wedemeyer with Stasis Design to walk through the study, what they looked at, what they take it away, Will.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Will Wedemeyer with Stasis Design, and yeah, we've been working closely with the district and the state on this the most cost-effective remedy for the purpose of the study, I think, Ms. Carlson kind of talked about this a little bit, but it really, the district over the last, say, 10 years or so, enrollment's been in decline. And we've been, they've been looking away to consolidate, square footage and things. And so that was really kind of the basis of that. It's kind of a continuation of that previous report, but more focused on the elementary K-5. And while this is also going on, the district is also converting all their elementaries to a K-5 configuration. So that's a change that's kind of going on in the district as well. But, the goal for the project, right size the facilities, reduce their surplus square footage. So those maintenance dollars are stretched so far and improve the learning environment for the kids. Some of the challenges, again, those declining enrollments. So the district at one time, I guess, had 302,000 in surplus square footage. So they get paid so much for, major maintenance up to a certain point. Anything over that, they have to stretch those dollars that far without any additional funds. We have that 302,000 does not take into account recently Ash Grove and Tonkin Middle High School have been removed from the district. So those square footages will be taken out of that 302,000. So they are getting pretty far along in that regard. But it does also the auditorium is not taken into account. I think 15,000 square feet. Go ahead. So the facilities we really looked at as part of the study again are for K-5. So that would be Rendezvous Elementary School, which was originally designed as a junior high school. It's about 80,000 square feet. It's a large facility. And a lot larger than really what the need was for the district. Well maintained, but again, it's 60+ years old. It was originally built in 1959. Jackson Elementary was also built about that same time, much smaller facility, was designed as an elementary school. But configuration and things like that are a little bit challenging. And then Aspen Park, built in 2009, and Willow Creek Elementary School, built in 2016, are two of their newer facilities. And we automatically assumed, those two facilities are going to remain, for a long time to come. So go ahead. So this just kind of gives you a snapshot of kind of the enrollment trends. You can look back 2015 till 2024, and you can definitely see that over the last 10 years, there has been a decline. There has been an uptick, after 2020, obviously the COVID year, things kind of fell off, but then they kind of rebounded. Other than that, there's been kind of a steady decline over the years. So what we did in order to move forward, we have to kind of project out what does that enrollment look like in the future. It's not an easy task because, at some point, we know it's not going to decline until it's zero. We know that there's going to be an inflection point where that's going to flatline or, at least flatten out and hopefully start back up. So what we did is we looked at 5 different methodologies for projecting those enrollments. Right.
It's crazy.
And we kind of averaged those together. Figured that would kind of temper that a little bit instead of just going off of, one of those where there's a severe decline. So we kind of tempered that, and next one. Go. And came up with a 929 average, which is the projected enrollment that we move forward with. Next one. So after we have that 929, then we look at Willow Creek and Aspen Park are the 2 newer schools that we know are going to stay online. So we look at the capacity of those schools as if after they're converted to a K-5, and we subtracted those capacities out from that 929, and that's what we used for our capacity need for that 3rd elementary school, which came out to be the 220 students. Something else we need to take into account on this project is in Riverton, specifically, there's about 50% of the population or the students are, at poverty line or below, which typically brings that in more need for special education services. And Department of Education shows Riverton School District or Fremont County 25 at 21.8% of the student population that are involved in those programs, which is much higher than the state average of 16.3 and much higher than the 13.9%, which is what Aspen Park and Willow Creek were designed to take into account. So if we take the 220 students and we plug that into the state's calculator, that kind of gives us a basis of what the square footage need is for that 3rd elementary. And that was 35,396. We also, in order to bring the district up to that, at least the 60.3% average, we added in an additional 2,500 square feet for special needs. And so we came to a total of 37,929. And this also talks about some of the requirements for the site as well. We have to evaluate the sites to make sure they'll meet the guidelines as well. So the process, it was a collaborative process, like I said, between Stasis Design, school district, and school facilities division. We looked at several remedies during the course of the project, and then we narrowed that down to 3 scenarios, and those are the 3 scenarios that we ended up scoring at the end here. And some of the criteria we looked at, the district helped us kind of develop the criteria and also the importance factor that went along with the scoring. So, site impacts, community impacts, operations impacts, educational impacts, and then cost, of course. And the scenario we looked at, obviously the first one, option A1, this is a new facility, 37,929 square feet. Conceptually, we located it north of Jackson and Rendezvous Elementaries on where that existing track is now. Again, this is just conceptual to show that we can, on the site. without having to demolish the other facilities, so it could come online and then the other facilities could be demolished later on. But, you know, showing that we can fit in, you know, bus loop, parent drop off, keep those separate. And then all the other site requirements are there, so. Option B1 was another option. So we did go ahead and look at Rendezvous. It's a very large facility, but and not really designed for smaller kids, but we wanted to take a look at it. We looked at it in several different ways. What we finally ended up on with this one was a partial demolition and renovation of the remainder of the facility. We ended up moving the main entry to a more central area with better views to the drop off for the parents and the buses. We got the parent drop off of 4th Street, which it's pretty congested. So I'm getting off. That was a kind of a priority with this design. I think that moved in off of 4th Street. But even with the demolition, we kind of demolished it where we felt like it made sense. Anything more than that, it gets a little more complex. But we demolished it down to about 65,000 square feet, so still well over the actual need. And then option C1 is we did go ahead and look at Jackson Elementary School, which was, you know, originally designed as an elementary, but it's also, you know, 60 plus years old. The configuration of the school doesn't lend itself well to some of the newer teaching methodologies and things, but we did go ahead and look at it. It wasn't quite big enough for the need. So in addition to this, we kept the parent drop off where it was, added a new bus drop off, you know, check to make sure that there's enough, you know, field space and things like that. But because the school wasn't big enough for the total capacity need, go to the next slide. We also included an addition to Aspen Park. That addition could be Aspen Park, it could be Jackson. So we just went with Aspen Park, figuring if you're gonna do an addition, maybe it makes sense to do it on one of the newer facilities versus a facility that's 60 plus years old. So that's what this is showing here, and which require the site's still large enough for the additional students, but then 10 additional parking spots, spaces would be required. Next. So then scenario A1, B1 and C1, this kind of gives you a breakdown of kind of the benefits. You know, A1, you know, right-sized, more modern facility, you know, designed around, you know, current teaching methodologies, safer traffic flows, things like that. But it does come with a sticker of 13.9 million. Scenario B1 was the partial demolition of Rendezvous and renovation of the remainder. The real benefit of that one is the district gets to keep a high school sized gymnasium in the district. You know, if Rendezvous goes away, then they lose a high school gym, which is kind of important to the district. So that option is 29.8 million. And then scenario C1, that's the renovation of Jackson and the addition to Aspen Park. And that one comes in at 18.2 million. Next slide. So this just kind of shows you the scoring results. A1 was the highest. That is the new facility, and that is the recommendation. I want to kind of show you their kind of a benefit versus cost analysis that we did. And this just kind of gives you a further breakdown of the cost. So the building construction alone would be 20.5 million. Then of course you have the site work, asbestos abatement, demolition of Rendezvous, and additional owner costs, design costs, things like that. Some of the impacts, just a few that kind of stood out were, you know, preserves the neighborhood concept for the district, for the school model, addresses, you know, that congestion for the drop off. And of course, 21st century learning environment, you know, designed around those newer methodologies. And the Rendezvous gym, we did talk about, you know, maybe the possibility is that if they did demolish Rendezvous, maybe there's a way to save the gymnasium and just demolish that to a point, save that. So that's something that, you know, it's good for decide later on. And with that, I will take any questions you might have.
Questions? Questions? Well, you know, you talk about the gym, Superintendent Eyeball worked the deal with the Boys and Girls Club.
Yep.
And they have probably one of the most successful boys and girls clubs in the state right now because of the efforts of the district. Superintendent,
Sure, that's really, yeah,
so, you know, it's probably good, to maybe try to save that.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Superintendent, I'd recommend that being from Carbon One. We got the new high school, the new gym, but it's not the same feeling. It's not the same community involvement for. Wish the district the best of luck, but really the public should be there and know what's going to happen. And
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
and this is maybe almost a rhetorical question, I guess, but I hope. So one of the elements that I see here is that the two existing elementary schools are about twice the size of the proposed new one. Is that going to create an equity concern within the district as far as who gets to go to the new school and et cetera?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I might, ask Superintendent to answer that.
So that is a concern that we do have going down to a, 2-section school from a 3-section. So I did run some numbers in the last couple of weeks and I was looking at them a little bit more closely this morning. But we're brainstorming options because we're very excited about the possibility of moving forward with a new school and just working within what we're allowed from the state to make our programs work. So currently, we look very closely when our students are placed in schools to have an equal representation of special education, poverty, and all of the demographics as we place them in schools. So we aren't, while we are neighborhood schools and we do have that, we also consider our demographics when we place students. But that is something that is on our radar and we have talked with Shelby and the state about that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Jump in, Bish. So, at the September 23rd, so on Tuesday, the Fremont County, School District Number 25 Board of Trustees, did concur with the Mercer. We had one, member that abstained from voting and the rest of the, board members voted in favor. So the action item for the commission is to determine whether the adoption of the study recommendation, construct a new elementary school is the most cost effective for running a good elementary school, and whether to continue the implementation of the 2019 Mercer to aid the district to reduce its remaining square footage. On the bottom of page 64, I'd like to walk through this table with you a little bit. If you'll recall, when we looked at the budget in September, we had some dollar figures in there. The district and the consultant and the state had been working together and knew that we were doing tweaking to the size of that facility. And so we knew that the dollar figures we were asking for were high, but we wanted to be sure we had something in there for a placeholder. So here you'll see the new dollar figures. So you'll see the revised request design to go down to about 3.2 million. We've reduced that by about $412,000 in ask. The construction will go from 36.2 down to about 29.9, a savings of 6.3 million. I'd like to talk a little bit about the demolition. We had 1,607,720 in our original ask. Like to propose that we drop that to 0. And the reason being, we, as soon as we're finished here, we'll be moving back into completing the most cost effectivity study for their alternative school. We don't know where that's going to go yet, but Rendezvous Elementary School may be an option and a remedy that plays into that. So we've got some time, so I've pulled the demolition costs out of this. They were included in the remedy evaluation to ensure we were comparing apples to oranges as we consider this closer. But I think if we look to finish the alternative Mercer, alternative school Mercer, it might be a little premature to include the demolition in the ask. So we can always come back and request that next year after the alternative school Mercer is complete, if indeed we want to demolish the old rendezvous. So that's a 0. And so you'll see, our dollar figure, we have actually dropped, if we go ahead and add the unanticipated amount of money that was included, we dropped our ask, for this, Mercer, about $8.8 million is what the reduction in the ask will be if, the commission adopts this most cost-effective remedies. With that, if the superintendent, I've all have any further comments she'd like to make, I'd like to give her the floor and then I'll read a recommendation.
Okay, great.
I just want to say that it's been a pleasure to work with the state and with spaces in this process. I've learned a lot. Ed, I've learned a lot. We are both new to our positions and growing in it and just having the conversations and looking at big picture ideas and working together. I really appreciated the conversation that we had, and thank you for bringing up the point of the equity, because when we worked with the state, we didn't have an additional square footage in there. We hadn't looked at 13.9 versus our 21% versus the 16%. And the flexibility and the willingness to say, yes, we need to meet those needs of your district because does have a special population, was appreciated. So, and I appreciate the work of the commission. We're excited about the potential of moving forward with the new elementary school.
Bruce.
Just clarification question. I'm looking at the design here on page 44, I believe it is. Bus loop that comes in. I presume that the district owns that property where the anticipated bus loop is going to be added.
We do, and that is not necessarily the design, that we haven't talked about fully. We're just making sure that we have that opportunity, because right now our current setup is not ideal for the amount of parents who now pick up students versus our neighborhood is congested, as are our other 2 neighborhoods, because students don't want to walk to school and they don't ride the bus as often. And so we have hundreds of cars waiting for an hour or an hour and a half in our neighborhoods to pick up students. So one of the things that we talked about is let's make sure that whatever we do, we try to relieve that congestion.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it's just a test fit to make sure everything works and
Absolutely, I get it. It's not locked into design yet. I'm just looking at this space potentially could be used as a bus loop and cost the building, and know from experience that purchasing real estate after the fact gets exponentially more cost prohibitive once things have been put in place.
Just a couple of follow-ups with what Bruce had. So will this utilize some of the undeveloped 56 acres that the district has?
Yes.
Okay. And then what will the new excess square footage be for the district after?
Yeah, this will actually remove, about 42,500 more square feet from that 120. So we'll go down to 100,000.
Okay.
Square feet, so we do make another drop. Now, that's contingent, I mean, that includes the removal of Rendezvous Elementary School. So that will still be in play till we finish the most cost-effective remedy study for Frontier County.
So the 100,000 is with Rendezvous in place?
No.
It's with Rendezvous out.
Taken out.
With the June left, right? So that will be.
Potential.
So
Right.
safety.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, your recommendation, the State Construction Department recommends that the School Facilities Commission adopt as its written most cost-effective remedy determination stasis design study titled Denver County School District number 25, most cost-effective remedy dated September 16, 2025. And scenario A1, construct a new elementary school to meet the capacity needs of the district as the most cost-effective remedy. This remedy is in the best financial and educational interest of the state, taking into consideration the most efficient and cost-effective approach to deliver quality educational services and address building and facility needs and the effects of the proposed activity on the local community. In addition, the State Construction Department recommends that the School Facilities Commission approve. The department should present the budget modifications as shown in the table included in the revised request column to the governor and the Select Committee on School Facilities for consideration in adjusting the School Facilities Commission 2027-2028 biennium budget request.
I would entertain a commission vote motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the SFC approve the SCD's recommended motion as written and verbally expressed.
Second.
Second.
Seconds. Discussion. Discussion. Discussion, since you're ready to vote, all those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
If there are any opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really did a nice job in this virtual. Right.
Thank you.
It's easy to read and kind of flip you through it, so. Yep. Okay, the next item we have is Teton. Number 1, the Mercer for Jackson Hole High School. Administrator Carlton, MGD.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 2024, the legislature appropriated funds for construction of divinity for Teton County School District 1, Jackson Hole High School. Part of the requirements of that session law was that the amounts appropriated under that subsection shall be expended by the commission to ensure adequate, efficient, and the most cost-effective school buildings and facilities that are contained in the school district's facility plans. So that wording is what initiated the need for a most cost-effective remedy. In March of 2024, the commission approved the department to move forward with the most cost-effective remedy study for adequacy concerns at Jackson Hole High School. The State Construction Department entered into agreement on March 31st with MGT Consultants to perform a Mercer study. Again, their goal was to address the adequacy issues that had been identified, align with statewide uniform adequacy standards, provide a sustainable long-term solution for the district, balance the benefits, costs, and educational outcomes, and address current and future enrollment needs. And with that, I believe we have Mr. Rob Tanner online with MGT to make a presentation for you.
Good morning. Good morning. Do you have the ability to put the slides up there, or do I need to share my screen?
You may have to share your screen, Rob. I apologize. My Adobe is stuck and not working.
Okay. Well, let me give it a shot and see what happens. Oh, it says you have to allow me to do it. So.
Sorry, I was trying and it just keeps spinning.
Here we go.
And we're having technical.
All right. Let me know when you can see it.
Good, thank you.
Excellent. Well, good morning. As I said, it's a pleasure to be with you again. This is a most cost-effective remedy for Teton High School. And this is the same slideshow that we did give to the school board. I like to make sure that I say that. And so some of the things that I go over quickly will be things that you obviously already know. But again, just wanted to go through it. So Mercer studies can be for 3 different things: capacity, condition, or adequacy. This particular one was triggered by adequacy, specifically a letter from the board there of trustees for Teton County that they sent a letter of all the different deficiencies they felt like were keeping their school from moving forward. The report is structured in a traditional way with a project background and methodology. We do some educational facility overview, community engagement, economic context, enrollment projections, capacity and utilization analysis. And then we look at the analysis of the compliance with the current education standards, and then remedies for any deficiencies that are found, and then recommendations based on those remedies. Jackson County High School, or Jackson Hole High School, is approximately 164,000 square feet. It is 2 stories. It is an aesthetically pleasing building. I think it was built, give or take, right around 2000, so it's in the 25-year-old range. It has, I think, 5 tennis courts. It has 2 adjacent turf fields. I think one is field hockey and soccer, and another is a football field. But I think it's mostly the practice field. The actual stadium is on adjacent property. It is built with multiple general classrooms, music rooms, art rooms. Has a 550-seat media center. It has both a competition gym and an auxiliary gym. I think the competition gym has approximately 12 to 1,300 seats, so it sits everyone in the school. And then there's approximately 320 regular parking spaces, and there's some additional handicap, and then their bus loop has parking for 12 buses. Looking at enrollment projections, it was one key piece of ours. Of course, when we do enrollment projections, we do modeling. We just much like a weather forecast, so we're looking at different models and we take a weighted average. We use an average percentage increase model, linear regression, cohort survival, and then student age of population. Student age of population is we look at historical student age population inside the school district, see how many are being captured by the school district, and then we apply that to projections for the same student age population going forward 10 years. Overall, we feel like that Jackson Hole High School is going to stay kind of a small decline in enrollment over the next 10 years, which is a little bit different when you look at the historical numbers. Typically, we like to say the best predictor for the future is the past. But as you can see, the last 10 years, they've had a steep increase, steep increase in enrollment, which makes it a little scary to say now it's going to level off and slightly decline. But if you look at that lower graph there, you'll see that is the elementary enrollment over the last 10 years. And so while the high school has been increasing, that elementary has had a steep decline that kind of matches that incline for the high school. Excuse me. So based on that, there were some objections from the district about some housing initiatives there in Jackson that they feel like is going to impact it. But we did, excuse me, through our recommendation, we did account for giving them some cushion because there will be some increase in capacity from our ultimate recommendation. And they were happy that we took their consideration into account. There was a big analysis of their capacity. We did spend a lot of time with the school district and with the state to go back and make sure that every classroom was being counted correctly, both in what they were used for and the number of students. Based on that recalculation, we come to a functional capacity of just over 1,000. So 1,001 students is the functional capacity of the building. As you well know, the adequacy standards in many cases don't set specific things. Like they don't say you need to have X amount of science labs or you need to have X amount of art or X amount of special education, but there is a maximum school square footage, and that enables those local authorities, those local school districts to decide what educational programs they want to prioritize. So we looked at those educational standards based upon not only what they gave in your letter to you, to the feedback of what deficiencies they perceived, but we looked at it just in general for every adequacy standard to make sure that there wasn't any deficiencies against those standards. Safety and compliance is a big piece of that. Compliance with accessibility standards, so ADA from 1990 ADA laws. We did look at the site requirements. So for looking at parking, we looked at bus zones, emergency access, drainage, exterior lighting, those things. And then we looked at accessible control, surveillance, school vestibules, school manager systems, management systems, visitor management systems as well. And so after looking at all things, these are the four big primary adequacy deficiencies we found. The first one was a lack of a secure vestibule. The way the building is built, the main office is not near the main entrance, which is a little odd for, for a 25-year-old school. We see that a lot in, a 50-year-old building, but not so much in 20, but that is the way it is set up. And then we've already brought, and you've already approved, we had like a supplemental Mercer to this Mercer for that vestibule, but I wanted to bring it up because it's still in this overall Mercer, even though it has already been approved by both the school district and you as a commission, and they're moving forward with their design. The other thing is cafeteria dining space. They were very, very short on cafeteria dining space. When we looked at the International Building Code and the square footage per student, they currently have seating for 578 students, which is much less than the 861 that they have enrolled. And to use the current space without doing anything, they would have to have 3 or maybe even 4 lunch periods. And we went around and we looked and said, well, 3 may not be out of the ordinary, but in Wyoming, we couldn't find another high school that were using 3 lunch periods. And I'm not saying that there's not one, because we could have missed one, but majority of them do have 2 lunch periods. And then their cafeteria point of sale, so the matriculation of students where they come in and they walk through the line to get their food and they pay for it, is really awkward. There's 5 different entrances and exits, and so it creates a flow problem because you have students coming in from all these 5 different areas instead of more of a a line per se, or multiple lines for picking their food and purchasing food. So it really slows down the process. And then the last thing was, especially compared to other high schools in the state, there was limited amount of CTE facilities, specifically CTE facilities that were specially designed for CTE. Many of their CTE programs were in general classrooms. There's CTE for culinary, which is a big thing in Jackson. It's just in a dining space, and they roll equipment in and roll equipment out. And there's other non-CT areas. So based on that, we were looking at remedies to those deficiencies, and we came up with a lot of individual ones, including moving some of their weight training rooms around, which are adjacent to their food service kitchen, to make that a culinary space. We looked at taking their auxiliary gym and turning it into a CTE program, and then constructing a new auxiliary gym to the side. We were looking at adding on to their dining space in some places, the possibility of do we create a new kitchen space and then let their CTE have their own kitchen space as their CTE space. So we looked at it through multiple different ways, and when we did that singularly, we came up with a total cost of improvements of just under $25 million. Some of the issues with the individual pieces were that individual projects were going to take longer. They were going to be in the way of instruction and use of the building while they were being done, and the overall just use of the building while the construction projects were going on. So our second thing was come up with a comprehensive plan to remedy all of those with one designed addition. And so what we looked with that was building approximately a 20,000 square foot addition to their building, 1,500 square feet for additional dining space, putting in a new full-size kitchen so that we can now use the CTE. The CTE for a culinary can now move into their own kitchen. 13,000 square foot for CTE instruction, specifically designed for CTE programs. And then by doing that, we were also able to address some of their other issues that weren't technically uh, adequacy deficiencies. Because, for example, they have enough bathrooms, restrooms for their students. They had some arguments about where they were placed and the time it took during school or class transition to get there. Same thing with some of their hallway sizes. They felt like some of their hallway sizes were smaller. I think in some areas they're 8 feet. The building code says it has to be a minimum of 6 feet, so it wasn't technically a deficiency. But making this construction, the idea behind, again, this is just preliminary. It would have to be designed by an architect, but these are just mock-ups. But we would be able to connect a hallway on the back of their education wings, place bathroom, restrooms there, would give them a second route for traffic so that those smaller hallways won't be as congested because there'll be two ways to travel. And it gives them an extra set of restrooms in case, closer to those wings that will hopefully eliminate some of the travel time. And so based on that, that was the recommendation that we felt was the most cost effective in the long run and the most beneficial to the school. And like I said, 20,000 square foot, give or take, with a new dining, new modern kitchen, improve the lunch service, and 13,000 square feet for their CTE programs. Repurposing some of the spaces that are now being used for CTE back in the general classroom also helps them give them a little bit more capacity for if some of the housing programs that are going on in Jackson do outperform our estimates in enrollment. It gives them a little bit of a cushion for that. It creates better circulation and better overall circulation of the building. There is currently also a vocational building that is really not designed to be a vocational building. To be completely honest with you, it looks more like a maintenance building. And so that would be converted back to a maintenance and grounds use instead of a vocational building. It's about 5,000, give or take, square feet. I don't remember off the top of my head. And that also is an improvement for security because you no longer have students traveling across the parking lot to go take their vocational classes. They are in the building and through their travel points. Total cost estimate is right at $21 million for this one. So just in conclusion, there were some facility adequacies that we found. And the strategic remedy, we feel like the comprehensive remedy that's proposed improves the facilities, it creates a supportive learning environment, and it helps with growth if there is growth in enrollment, and it complies with all of the current standards. So any questions for me?
Questions? Travis.
Mr. Chairman, I am curious, in the population projection for the schools, how the moratorium on those that don't live in Jackson bringing their kids to there affects that projection, because my understanding was that several years ago, Teton County told its teachers, your children have to stay where you live, and many of their teachers live in Alpine or Afton. Was that taken into consideration in those projections?
Those projections were based off of residents of the county. So no. So if they want to bring, that would add to it.
And Teton County or the school district is currently building employee housing, is that correct?
That is correct. A matter of fact, I think they're almost done with it. Like it's groundbreaking is pretty soon.
Would I be correct in presuming that they would be bringing their children with them if the teachers moved to Teton County?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there is a lot of workforce housing strategies being developed There is a lot of affordable housing, the initiatives within the county because they struggle with, with workforce that can afford to live there. And so that's where the kind of unknown is, we can try to project those and where that cushion for the added capacity, will help.
Mr. Chairman, if I could weigh in on that. So at the board meeting, and actually during the number of meetings we had with the district, there was a lot of concern from the district on student growth, student population. And at the end of the day, I think we agreed to disagree on what our numbers were versus where maybe their numbers are going to be. But as was pointed out in the Mercer study, by doing the overall comprehensive, that's going to open up 4 to 6 more classrooms, 25 students per classroom. So another 100 to 150 student population there. Where they're at right now, roughly 900, you're at 1,000. There's another 100 student population available within the current building as it sits today. And the other discussion that we had was that if you go back to the discussion on the first alternative, where we took the alternative gym and made that into another CTE program, since we're building the CTE program within that wing, that if the projections are wrong in the future or it happens quicker, I think hopefully Jackson will continue to grow to where in the future they're going to need some more space. But we can take that alternative auxiliary gym and turn that under the same concept into classrooms. Now, obviously, you can fit more students in a regular classroom than you can in a CTE space. So when we run the numbers on that auxiliary gym and you take a 30% circulation space calculation out of that, there's roughly about 300 more students you could add in that auxiliary gym. And what the discussion at the board meeting was, is that, again, if they run into that, we're looking now forecasting 8 years in advance. So while our trend for this study is showing, relatively a flat, but slightly downturning trend, if that turns around, I think we got plenty of time, particularly given that we've got roughly 200 to 250 seats available to look at where that trend may go. And then with the auxiliary gym, folding that back in, we could add potentially another 300 students population with the auxiliary gym. And then it would, because we'd be utilizing that auxiliary gym and be upon the state to replace the auxiliary gym is an alternate to do that. So again, we could build on to that portion that you saw back there in the future. And of course, their Bronc Achievement Centers going back in there for that all to be laid out to leave room for an auxiliary gym in the future, which would give us future potential growth in there. So there was an awful lot of discussion. I was actually was going to weigh in on that because I assured the board that I wanted to present to this commission their board's concern about that population trend. But I think at the end of the day, what the board said is we were really interested in our primary focus is interested in making the current facility, bringing it up to the standards that they can move forward with the educational programs that they want to present.
That would be.
I haven't brought, if I had to describe that, we've got somebody here that can, so.
That'd be taking the gym and making it 2 stories.
Yes, yeah. And that was going to be, Mr. Chairman, that was going to be the plan for a CTE program also, was to build out that first floor to get that space, because there was about 8,000 square foot in that gym, and then frame it in so you could more readily add additional space on the second floor should that come in the future. Again, that same concept, whether in the future we said, okay, we got 200, 250 seats available, maybe we need to forecast is 400 or 500. Do we do a first floor and a second floor? All those things are still there, I think, as another alternative, which is, I think, one of the benefits to this second option. It gives us that look forward in the future where the first option didn't do that.
And it can be done outside of the school now, so it doesn't disrupt the to most extent, doesn't disrupt instruction now.
Thank you. Question addresses what I said.
Question?
What is the turning point? What is the magic number? I'm just thinking about process. With a new facility from need to getting it budgeted to actually getting design done. So that, you know, you're minimally looking at a 2 to 3 year process there, minimum. So what is the threshold, with Teton? I think we've all seen a lot of the new facilities that are going in, as far as high density housing, some of those types of things. So I guess, what is the threshold when that trigger is pulled to say, hey, we need to start looking seriously at this auxiliary gym space and to get that off of sorts.
Mr. Chairman, I'll weigh in and, Administrator Carlson can correct me, but so we look 8 years out in the future. So that projection 8 years out in the future, once that says you're going to hit 100% capacity, again, 8 years out in the future is where we're going to be looking at that. So I think between the available seats that would be there now, once this is completed, the either 100 or 200 to 250 seats, if we see that thing projecting still it's going to be out there, then we're looking 8 years in the future for what's going to show for, as we mentioned, by the time we, and I actually think it's more like a 4-year process. By the time we come to the committee, that's identified, go through the Mercer that would show that would be needed. And I hope that would be very relatively short because we've done a lot of this front end Mercer work. So that will be shorter than what we are typically running through. But we go back and do a Mercer to reconfirm where we're headed based on what our internal population trends are driving for that school. Then by the time you come to the commission, you get the funding, you go out for design 2 years. So I think it's a little bit longer. You still have a 4-year lag, I think, there, plus the available seats that are there now.
Thank you.
Any other question? Scott?
And just a follow-up on Commissioner Conklin's question about the workforce housing, the teachers and their kids being able to be students at Jackson.
Mr. Chairman, if I understand the question, we do have a moratorium currently in place for all local workforce in Teton County. So workforce coming in from other counties. So it's not just our own employees, but anyone who works in our community. That has been in place for a number of years due to our capacity issues. Our hope is that we could, and let me back up and say, we do have an exception application process so that if someone has moved to Alpine or further down the valley, they can apply. And if there is capacity at the school they are requesting to attend, we can make an exception and allow those students to come in. Ideally, we would love to be able to accommodate all students in Wyoming who live in the vicinity, whose families work in Teton County. We would love to be able to accommodate them in our schools, recognizing that it's a 45-minute, hour-long commute, that we would love for them to be able to bring their children to Teton County, because it's really tough for a parent who comes to work, their child gets sick, and they're an hour away. Their child is injured during the school day, they're an hour away. So being able to accommodate them locally, I think is a benefit to our community, and I think it's a benefit to the students that we serve. So being able to lift that moratorium or modify it to maybe not open the floodgates completely, but to make some more accommodation, I think is in the best interest of kids.
Mr. Chairman, one final comment. And again, perhaps the school district can weigh in on this, but if that moratorium is lifted, we're not probably just talking high school students. So you'd be talking elementary students. And part of the discussion that we've had is what would we be looking at for another elementary school, or perhaps an addition on the junior high or something. is that student population as a whole increases, and where does that head in the future?
That has been addressed. That's good.
Well, we've talked about it. We don't know exactly where it's gonna be. You know, the last time that we built a new elementary, in Jackson, I think was about 2016 when I started, came in, and it was actually during that first session. The department and the commission had been looking at a new elementary for a long time, but there was nowhere to build it. And after many years, they finally got the land, and it was beyond the normal process of coming through the commission. So we actually ferreted that through the legislature is when the land became available, and we got the land, the money for the land during the session just to build the school. And it's the same thing. Land has got cheaper in Jackson, right, in the last 10 years. So trying to find some of that now. I'm not so sure in some of the new housing work that's being contemplated is a site, an additional site for land for school within that overall comprehensive county view.
It is envisioned that there would be a parcel for a school. Now, I have heard that there may be some conversations at the legislative level of whether or not that can be a requirement or not. But we'll wait to see how that plays out. But there is a site, a school site envisioned for that affordable and workforce housing project that will be immediately to the south of Jackson Hole High School.
Further questions? Recommendation?
Mr. Chairman, I might let Director Reynolds go ahead and make additional comments before I move forward and through the rest of the sheet make that recommendation for you. Since we had her in the hot seat there for a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Charlotte Reynolds with Teton County School District. I appreciate the opportunity to just say thank you. This has been a long process, as I think many of you are aware. And the fact that we're here today with the consideration of the Mercer before you is exciting, is really exciting for us. Our board, as was mentioned, our board did approve the Mercer, unanimously approved it. And as was referenced as well, we agreed to disagree in terms of capacity and all of that, recognizing that this proposed solution provides the opportunity to add additional seats if the housing generates the students we anticipate that it will. We felt like this recommendation, this solution provides what we need today, and then will give us the chance to address any future capacity issues that we might encounter. So we appreciate that. We think that's the right direction to go. And again, I just want to say thank you. It's been, again, a long process, but working with Director McComey, Administrator Paulson, the team at SFT, this commission throughout this process, I think we've come up with a really good next step in this process. And we look forward to being able to move this forward as quickly as possible. When we started this process, we thought about 35 million was going to take care of our Bronc Achievement Center, or the academic or the recreational space, as well as the classroom space. In the time that it's taken us to get here today, 35 million doesn't quite get us where we need to be. And so being able to move this forward quickly will help reduce the reduction in the value of the money that we do have available to us. So we look forward to that. One thing I will note is in the previous concept, we were using district fund recreation, Teton County School District recreation funds to design, planning and design. Because of this new approach, it's going to be more difficult for us to justify using rec district money for planning and design. So sort of taking a look at how we pay for the design piece will be an important component as well. But again, moving forward now as quickly as we can, I think will be tremendously important to this project. And again, I thank everyone for your commitment to this, to bringing this forward. Our community is really excited, and I'm happy to stand for any other questions.
Just because there has been a bunch of talk in the last few years here about the Bronc Achievement Center. Is that still anticipated to proceed, but just separate and detached from this project?
Chairman, Commissioner Ferentz. Yes, we have a concept for the Bronc Achievement Center. We've sort of set that off to the side a little bit to get through this process. We recognize we'll need to do some additional fundraising. We have a nonprofit fundraising arm or support for the district. They will be doing some work along with some of our trustees to raise some additional funds to bring that forward, but that'll sort of operate or, move forward on a slightly separate path, recognizing where it fits within the broader scope of this project as well.
Because if I remember right, the original plan that was shared with us had a mix of classroom space and the enhancement space.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if we can pull that picture back up, but one of the concepts that we're talking about is some shared space on what you saw in that pink section there. So they may be able to attach that Bronc Achievement Center on that outside of that, so they can use a shared hallway. They can be able to access the auxiliary gym and their weight room down through that area. There'd have to be some separate doors put in for off after hours, but they could come in and utilize that and take advantage of those bathrooms on that far end as part of that Bronc Achievement. So I think our conversations with the district is the architect that comes in to do this, if they're involved in that other, there's that ability, if so desired, it can be worked out to share some of that space and how that's utilized. So.
Further question? Further question? No.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Chairman, as Director Reynolds commented on September 10th, the school district board did vote unanimously to concur with this recommendation, a comprehensive remedy student dining point of sale and CTE classrooms as the most cost-effective remedy for Jackson Hole High School. So the commission needs to determine whether the adoption of the study is the most cost-effective solution for the adequacy deficiencies of Jackson Hole High School. Potential results, we need that adoption so that it can be incorporated into the Teton County School District facility plan. And then the department needs to be able to move forward to the governor's office and the select committee to make a budget request for the 2027-2028 biennial budget for design and or inflation funds. As we look at the table, if we move on to page 93, as near as we can tell by looking at the 2024 legislation, the 21.8 million was appropriated for construction. There's no mention in the design section for any funding for design. We are working with LSO to make sure we're reading that correctly. Obviously, if we can use some of that money, we can expedite the design. We can get things moving quicker. It saves us money in the long run. So that would be our preferred option. Based on our reading of the session law, we do not believe that to be available to us. So we've got 21.8 million there for construction. In the unanticipated pot, there was appropriated 1.3 million for a total of $23,108,000. If you look at these numbers that I presented, an estimated 700,000 of that will be removed for the secure vestibule as that project's moving forward. So if we get down to the next table, you'll see option 1, which is what I kind of talked about there. I really don't think that option's available to us. Obviously, if LSO decides we can use some of those monies, that would be the option that we would move forward with. The request then would be for $2,180,866,000, which would be basically inflation, and to accommodate this remedy with the unanticipated of $130,852. What we believe to be the option that we will carry forward is option number 2. Let me just give you a little insight on option one, option two, option three, so you understand. Option one would mean as soon as we've got approval here, if we can use some of that $21.8 million appropriation, we'd start the design as soon as we could, almost immediately. We would move into that design and get that design started. So that, you know, is a cheaper option. Option number two is that we take it to the legislature. And our request will be for the funding to be available immediately, so that we can start the design as quickly as possible and move it forward. So that's option number two. And then option number three, if they don't appropriate that funding immediately, the request is different, because if we don't have any design money to start till like August, by the time it's appropriated and we go in and procure the design, we lose a whole year in construction. So that's the difference between each of those options. Each one goes up about $700,000, depending on that 6-month time frame. So option number two, if you look at that, our shortfall is that 2.8 million. We end up needing 2,809,810 for design. That includes the design proper, along with some inflation on that. The construction request should be 69,482 for that total of 2,879,292. Coming along with that would be unanticipated money of 172,758. So the total request would be $3,052,050. That's contingent on that money being available immediately. If we look at option number three, it changes down to where we are asking for 2,891,649,000 for design, 686,069 for construction. And then the unanticipated on that goes up to 214,663 for a total ask of 3,792,381. Again, when you look at this, if you look at our available funds, we have reduced that by 700,000 for that secure vestibule, which is already progressing. So recommendation, Mr. Chairman, the State Construction Department recommends that the commission adopt as it's written, most cost-effective remedy determination, MGT study entitled Most Cost-Effective Remedy Study, Jackson Hole High School Adequacy, dated September 2025. And the comprehensive remedy student dining, point of sale, and CTE classrooms as the most cost-effective remedy. This remedy is in the best financial and educational interest of the state, taking into consideration both the most efficient and cost-effective approach to deliver quality educational services and address building and facility needs and the effects of the proposed activity on the local community. In addition, the department recommends that the commission approve the department to present the budget modifications as shown in the table above for option number one, which is preferred if it's determined we can use those funds for design, or option number two, to the governor and the select committee on school facilities for consideration in modifying the school facilities commission 27/2028 biennium budget request. The option requested will be identified by the determination of funds from the 2024 appropriation, whether they can or cannot be used for design. Now to take any other questions.
I'm gonna entertain a motion.
Oh, I had one more question I meant to
I'm
ask.
gonna make a motion, then we'll have any questions.
I move the the School Facility Commission approve the state construction department's recommendation motion as recommended.
Second.
Oh, this is more of a general question. I just want to make sure when we're talking, design means all soft costs, right, in that budget, survey, geotech, all that, not just okay.
That's
I
right.
figured, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, it should be in phase. We should clarify. Design phase, construction phase.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to clarify.
Second question, I'm sure you guys consider this, there are no other options for us to be able to start design using other funds within our purview at the point.
Not that we're aware of, that's why we're reaching out to them.
I figured you were probably looking for it, but I thought I'd ask the question.
They've been working hard on that, you know.
Scott,
Just follow up Commissioner Perrin's question a little bit for the administrator. So it's roughly a 57% increase on just hard construction costs, Fremont 25 versus Teton. Just hard construction costs, there's that much difference.
Mr. Chairman, and Commissioner Thayer, I think whenever you're on an occupied campus and doing a remodel, it's a little more complicated than a new build on the site. So we see higher prices in that regard. And there's also regional differences in costing as well. So a combination of those two things is what's driven the estimates of where they're at.
And Mr. Chairman, you know that Fremont's about 37,000 square feet is the addition is about 20,000 square feet. So you can see that.
Mr. Chairman, as far as the costing, we actually went out and talked to local contractors and architects that do work in Teton County to try and come up with that dollar figure and verify our consultant. MGT actually was in that realm, but we wanted to verify, so we did reach out to estimate those dollar figures. It's about $850 square foot in Jackson. And so again, we went that extra step of using cost estimators and local folks to help us with that cost. So
further questions? Further questions? Since you're ready to vote, all those in favor of. Yes. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Same sign. So moved.
Thank you.
We have
Thank you.
tab 5, Teton School District number 1. Campbell, I mean, number 1, request for disposition of Fox Park parcel. John Rexis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Campbell County School District number 1 sent a letter on August 12th, 2025, disclosing their intent to sell a parcel of land known as the Fox Park parcel. This parcel is 6.94 acres and it's currently vacant. Disposition of the land is mentioned in the district's facility plan. The site is south of the Complex Park and it's just over 2 miles from Hillcrest Elementary and approximately 3 miles from 3 other elementary schools. Per our design guidelines, this site wouldn't be suitable for anything more than a 300-student elementary school. I don't have any information on any due diligence that was performed on that site, as it was purchased before the conception of the school facilities department. The Campbell County School District 1 Board of Trustees held a public hearing on July 9, 2025, followed by the board approval of the disposition of the property on July 16, 2025. The action item today is to determine whether the disposition of this property referenced as Fox Park parcel that's financial interest of the state or is not otherwise in the public interest. We've included kind of a bird's eye view of that parcel. And the potential results are that with the School Facilities Commission, with the School Facility Commission's approval, Campbell County School District 1 will dispose the Fox Park parcel. The state recommendation is that the State Construction Department recommends the School Facilities Commission approve Campbell County School District 1's request to dispose of Fox Park parcel as being in the best financial interest of the state and public, with the understanding that any costs and revenues incurred by the disposition of land shall be accounted for in the district's facility plan and considered in any building or facility remedy for that district, including any required remediation of the site.
Thank you. I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that Commission approve the State Construction Department's recommendation as indicated.
Second.
The move second. Discussion. Discussion? Discussion.
One question, please.
Okay. Yes.
Nearby schools, capacity wise, you got capacity in nearby schools?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I actually have that information on the next agenda item, which happens to be for another elementary school there. They're actually sitting at about 78.44% capacity right now for in-town elementary schools. And there's, per our methodology, 1,084 seats available.
Thank you. No further question.
Mr. Chairman, just follow up on, with the new school being, the new high school being built up there, how does this go into the overall plan? If there's remediation costs to tear the demolition down, is that covered by the district or major maintenance, or how does all of that work?
If just for clarification, our other site actually has 2 buildings on it.
Okay.
But the remediation that we're speaking of in our recommendation is if there's something in soils or something that would come up with that. And if you are correct, it would major maintenance money for that type of remediation, not necessarily for any demolition.
Cannot, is what you said, right?
You can use major maintenance money for remediation.
Oh.
But in regards to demolition, the Uniform Act code that we have and the policy that we have on that is that the demolition for major maintenance is related to the repair and replacement of existing components and systems. So you can't necessarily go in and just demo a school with your major maintenance funds. But if you have demolition within that project to take some of the old equipment out, that's where you would categorize those expenses so that we're understanding what we're paying for.
Good question.
So to get it at its highest and best use for the next buyer, to get the highest value you can when you take it to the open market, do they advertise it as is with the facility above ground? Do they scrape it, and who to realize the most dollars back for the district and the state?
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna weigh in on this, and then Administrator Carlson and Director McConaughey can step in if they feel like they need to. We would have to take a hard look at anybody that wanted to use major maintenance funds to improve something for the purpose of disposition. I don't want to necessarily say that we wouldn't approve that, because it would be on a case by case basis, so we would look at it. I'm sure, you know, there might be a lot of unusual circumstances if that was the situation. But I think other than for the use of major maintenance, it would be more of a district preference question and how they wanted to handle that and how they want to go about the disposition of that property. And I do know that Associate Superintendent Dave Barton was here and with his facilities director, Sean Mathis. So they might have more information in my view, especially.
Mr. Chair, our intent would be to list the parcel as it is.
Okay.
I would agree with Mr. Rexis. We would not want to expend any major maintenance money to approve anything for the intent of the site.
Thank you.
So,
And my understanding, there's no improvements on this site anyways, right? It's just an empty
Yes.
lot, so. Right.
further questions? Further questions? Sensing you're ready to vote, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign? So moved. Next item is Campbell, School District number 1, request for disposition of Old Hillcrest / Kids Clinic. John Rex.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. County School District 1 sent a letter on August 12, 2025, disclosing their intent to dispose of a parcel of land that includes 2 buildings known as the Old Hillcrest Kids Clinic site. After the original Hillcrest Elementary School was replaced with a new facility in 2009, the original facility was repurposed as the initial location of the kids clinic, which has since been relocated to a new facility adjacent to Twin Spruce Junior High. And that occurred in the fall of 2020. There's two buildings on the site. The larger building is the old kids clinic that was previously the old Hillcrest. And it's approximately or exactly 41,878 square feet and was established in 1972. The smaller building is the old kids clinic modular, and it's 1,440 square feet and was established in 1975. The status of both buildings on the site has been surplus since 2017, and neither building was reviewed in the 2023 facility assessment survey because of the status. Disposition of the land and facilities are mentioned in the district's facility plan. The site is 7.5 acres and it's 0.4 miles from the existing Hillcrest Elementary School. And once again, the in-town capacity numbers for elementary schools are at 78.44% occupancy. And they currently have 1,084 seats available in town for the elementary school. Campbell County School District 1 Board of Trustees held a public hearing on July 9th, followed by the approval of the disposition of the property on July 6th, 2025. Again, this property will be advertised for sealed bids upon approval by the committee. I've included a bird's eye photo of the site. The white building that you see is the actual old Hillcrest School or Kids Clinic. And then there's also a picture of the modular that you see. The action item for today is to determine whether the disposition of this property in Gillette referenced as the Kids Clinic or old Hillcrest ES tract and associated buildings protects the financial interest of the state or is not otherwise in the public interest. The results are that with the School Facility Commission's approval, Campbell County School District 1 will dispose of this site and associated buildings. And the state recommendation is that the State Construction Department recommends the School Facility Commission approve the Campbell County School District 1 request to dispose of old Hillcrest Kids Clinic site and associated buildings as being in the best financial interest of the state and the public, with the understanding that any costs and revenues incurred by the disposition of the land shall be accounted for in the district's facility plan and considered in any building or facility remedy for that district, including any required remediation of the site. With that, I'll open up for any questions. And Sean or still question.
I entertain a motion to approve. I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the commission approve the state construction department's recommendation as indicated.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Discussion, since you're ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. We'll move. Thank you. And thank you guys for being here. Appreciate that. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our calendar meeting schedule. Prove it early. If anybody can identify any problems. We'd like as many people to be able to come to the meeting in person as possible. So putting out the proposed schedule early. And if nobody sees any real problem with it, bring it up. If we have any questions, we'll close the Shelley on that.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. As you'll see here, this is the proposed schedule for the 2026 school facilities meetings for next year. I just want to make note that both days may not be needed depending on the agenda items that we have scheduled for them, depending on travel and whatnot. April's meeting was moved to a week later due to possible spring break conflicts. And also July has moved back a week due to staff and district personnel involvement with Cheyenne Frontier Days. I also want to let you guys know that the SCD arranges these meetings to provide the SFC members the opportunity to see the district schools and their needs. So we encourage the SFC members' participation whenever possible. Chairman, would you like me to read the recommendation?
Please.
Great, the SCD recommends approval of the 2026 SFC meeting schedule with the caveat that allows adjustments to meeting dates and locations as necessary.
I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the commission approve the state construction department's recommendation as indicated.
I need a second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Discussion. Since you already vote motion of the motion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. So moved. Okay, the next item, do we need to go in an executive session for anything? We go into executive session, seeing none. I would entertain the motion to adjourn. Oh, excuse me, public comments. Go ahead and silence the camera. And Randy.
And Celebrity Rec Facility, Sweetwater 1.
And we always go 5 minutes, okay?
I'll be done. I'm glad to hear that you guys are moving forward with the third, with the projected right for research, safety and security. Because originally, if anyone's ever looked at the original document that was sent out, I'd be interested in doing a review because of everything that they sent us. There's probably only 4 or 5 things that are applicable today. I mean, on there, they have lanyards, visitor, for visitor entrances and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of that stuff is, I don't think it was applicable at the time, but it would be nice to see because most people, since that list has come out, have gotten into electronic access inside and outside the buildings, sometimes 2 different costs. So the list has changed and it'd be nice to see what the most common 4 or 5 items on the safety and security list would be.
Could you speak up just a little louder?
Sure. The prototype for the transportation, really like the idea from your timeline in 20 months, Sweetwater 1 would be happy to do a test ride for you. I just want to get that out there now, so because in Sweetwater County, the bus barn and transportation department was built in 1982. Since then, the district has grown. And along with that growth is we have a restricted site. We can only take in a couple buses at a time. So just getting that out there early. For the design build, Sweetwater 1, and when I was in Uinta 1, we use a version of that on renovations, because when we do a total of renovations, sometimes in a school district, you actually don't know if that building is going to be shut until late spring. So to shut a building down and then have 1 year to get it ready becomes difficult to go out to, for an architect and go out for, you're going to wait for the design. The process takes a long time. So we use a version of that. I've been doing that version for a long time. That's the only way that I can get renovations done. So would it work on a larger school? I personally like to go to a district, either in Wyoming or not in Wyoming, and sit on walk the site and talk to people so that, I may not build another building in my lifetime here, but it would be nice to know if it does work and who's doing it well. I mean, rather than just try it. I mean, for renovations, I know it works. My qualifications, I sit on the job sites. I haven't had a permanent office in 5 years because wherever the job site is, I set up my office there. I have ICC licenses for building inspector, fire inspector, plumbing and mechanical inspector. I have all 4 asbestos abatement licenses. So I feel that for me, especially since we have mixed funds, a lot of our funds are major maintenance because I break them down into components. And then a lot of times the district wants something, so that is on their dollar. And then when it comes to athletic facilities, we reach out to the rec mill and we get money. So you have mixed funds, and then there's always if you get a grant. So I'm comfortable in my district in training the people behind me to take over for me someday, to be the, kind of the on-site person. If I run into issues, I call up my architect, I call up my engineers, and I do, use all three, three basic engineers for structural, mechanical, electrical. If I have questions that I think can be handled relatively simple, I reach out to my project manager. Manager before Jeremy had a great background. Jeremy has a fantastic background. So I find that in major renovations, and I'm talking major, I got schools out and go in, and I do it in a year. The only reason why I had this North Park shut down for 2 years is because I can't get the materials. 2 years, 18 months for transformers. If you're gonna, it's ridiculous if you're gonna upgrade the electric. So I think design build in many situations is the answer. But I think before we move on to, I wouldn't mind trying to do it for my high school. That horse has left the gate, right? But I would still like to see other states, other projects that are of comparable size, if they're doing it and what's working and what's not working before I would be willing to try.
Thank you. Any other comment? Dave?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Dave Bartlett, Social Superintendent Campbell County. Just want to touch base on a lot of the items that Dan did as well with your discussion. First of all, I know the question came up about security vestibules. And what I would tell you is when we went to fill the survey out, we struggled with the actual definition of what a secure vestibule is in terms of safety, security, compared to just having a vestibule on the front of your building that you can secure. And when we look at that, we actually, to fill our part of the survey out, we went to the definition by Homeland Security, meaning that once we get folks into the building, we can hold them secure and not allow them to get deeper in the building. When you look at a lot of the criteria we use, you have a camera or you can lock it. Those are two of the levels. But we find that a lot of our vestibules, once we buzz them in, you can't keep that angry person from just pushing on into the building. So just my staff, we had quite a discussion on what the actual definition is. And I know those standards were developed in 2015, things have changed a lot, but what I will tell you is we move forward to have a more of a fine definition there, more rigid, I think would help. We use the theory of concentric rings of security, meaning the vestibule one, the office is second, classroom will be the third. And so we try to have definitive controls between each of those layers. So in my district, we have several vestibules that would be considered secure, but once we buzz them in, we can't keep them there. So that's just something to think about as we move forward. The second design build, as Dan said, we use that process for all of our renovation. Many of our major maintenance projects that we use will involve HVAC, those types of things. And I would agree with the conversation you had here, keeping the district involved in the design part, having the stakeholder involvement would be pretty key. So I would be interested to see as that grows, how that works. But again, I think it's a method that we all use with major maintenance on a level funding on a daily basis. And the final one I want to bring up when you're talking about prototypes and transportation facilities, and obviously we're in the process of designing one now. And it's an intriguing conversation because what I would tell you is I would agree that a wash bay is a wash bay and a repair bay in general terms can be very prototypical. Prior to us getting into the design process, we visited some whiteout facilities. We visited the University of Wyoming, we went down into Colorado, we looked at several there, and those components are very much the same. The one thing that I would point out is when you get to the administration and the training portion of it, I think that's where you still need to make sure that you've got district input because things can be very different. Prior to my time in Campbell County, I had 20 years in Laramie 1, largest district in the state. I had 125 school buses. I'm in the third largest district in the state now. And I have, almost 200 that I use to transport kids. In Laramie one, I was about 1.2 miles a year, and in Campbell County, we're at 2.2 million. Based on the size of the district, you know, those types of things. So when you look at that, I have over 200 staff in my transportation department in Campbell County. So that administration training space is going to look very different than it did in a larger district, you know, just down the road. So again, I think that when we look at the repair portion of it, that can be very prototypical. The other part I would look at is the actual size of the site. Obviously, as what we have found is the building costs, we can get those down pretty tight. But asphalt and concrete and secure fencing is another story. And when I'm looking at having to have parking for 200 staff members and vehicles for them, it's a larger site than what I had in a larger district. So just some things to think about as we move forward. So with that, stand for any questions.
Questions? Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Andy Knapp, Laramie County School District 1. I just want to talk a couple of things here that I heard. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but to touch on security a little bit first, I guess, something that I think we started about 10 years ago in Laramie 1 with some of those components. And what we're running into now is the maintenance of them. So especially if you're talking about, you know, cameras, access control, hardware, software. So that's, I think that's something to focus on. Statewide, it seems like when this initially started, I think 2016 or 17, the funds that were available, districts that could use them pretty well. And I think we've addressed a lot of secure vestibules in areas of the state, as well as other security components. But I do know, I think you guys released some of the additional money that was ever spent the first time, because some small districts have a harder time spending that money. So I guess to my point in that is I don't know if that needs to be looked at and considered. I know we're looking at replacing, you know, software and hardware components both on our access control currently, because we're going in about 10 years on those. And that's going to get into a couple $1 million at least. So it'll be pretty significant. So I just wanted to keep that in mind out there, that I think it's going to become a piece of maintenance versus actual initiation of those components. And then on the your prototype discussion on transportation facilities, a couple of things on that I wrote down here that I was thinking about. Initially, I don't know that a prototype on that, in my mind, seems difficult because of the size of districts we have in Wyoming. One of you, Mr. Rexius mentioned, you know, 3 sizes: small, medium, large. Wyoming has enough small districts that's a potential. I don't know in the large ones, if you took the 6 largest, that they're similar enough that any prototype would really fit into that. And especially when you look at our 2 largest ones, where we have you know, a triad busing system in Laramie 1 versus the central hub in Natrona 1. I don't know how that looks in a prototype. That doesn't seem like anything that would really work, but I guess in my mind, I'd like the idea. You guys have mentioned having a design committee for this and looking at it from other districts. I really like that idea, because in my mind, a transportation facility falls more into the design guidelines of a more detailed, specific design guideline for a transportation facility, because those design guidelines would apply probably to all or most all of transportation facilities versus the prototype. A couple of things I did hear Commissioner Conklin talking about, certain bays as being a prototype. That makes sense to me. I like Commissioner Thorne had mentioned, a little bit of local control to take into consideration for what your district needs, because of the differences in the district. And, I'd like to point out that, I believe it was in an email from the State Department that they talked about possible regional training centers, where we train our drivers. I will just bring to your attention, like Laramie 1, we train some of the smaller districts around us. And in the training piece of that, we have classroom training as well as driver training for CDL. And then we have our initial driver training, where we have to have, we can use like transportation, or we actually currently use the Liquor Commission's parking lot, which, given some of the things that have come to light, it's not great training bus drivers in the Wyoming Commission, Liquor Commission parking lot. But we do use that a lot. So I think, in my mind, those design guidelines with the transportation facility, not only are you looking at specific bays that every transportation facility would need, but looking at fuel islands. A lot of districts, including ours, are going to more gas buses than diesel buses because of the cost. And then again, this training facility. So I wouldn't think that having the driver training area in a very small 1A, 2A district would make a lot of sense, but in a larger district that basically helps with the training of that, would be something to keep in mind. That would be in those guidelines that they would need to have access to. So that being said, I don't know if anyone has any questions or.
Questions? Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other public comments? I think we have.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go into executive session for the purposes of obtaining legal advice and updates.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion? Considering vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So I'd like to thank everybody for being here. Let everybody know when we're done with our executive session.
Chairman, I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for that comment. Should we make sure we made the right motion for the executive session? That it was for the purpose of.
Legal advice and updates.
Sorry, just.
No worries, no worries.
I thought we were.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Almost do my students.
And then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. I have 5 minutes.
Well, if you look like what's the most of those, so it's you kids. Most was, and I brought the bus, as we were in walking those times. Those had those. And choose some.
I vote. They merge.
I find that independently. I would find out, I would do like.
Or 20 minutes.
Probably, I would do that.
Well, I talked to Sean about it.
I mean, even